Hello, this is CRP, aka Gonzalo Lira. How's it all going with you guys? Let me see a show of hands. If you could, just hit your hands up there, that little button, to make sure that you all are hearing me properly. Terrific. Let me just randomly catch up with some people and see how they're doing. Alexander Cece, how's it going? Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, this is
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, but I think that I'm gonna have to unfortunately mute you, Alexander, because your audio is like really something's up with it. Let me just see. Ibrahim, how's it going, Ibrahim? Are you there? Can you hear me? Ibrahim, I guess he doesn't have a mic. Okay. Uh, this is That's maybe third time's a charm. Harold, are you there? Hello, Harold. Can you hear me? Oh man, nobody has their mic fixed up. Okay, so remember, these are interactive. You guys fix your mics so that you can talk on stream because that's the fun of this, at least for me, and I hope for you guys too. So today is the second live stream the second weekly webinar. I'm really excited about this, and it's a lot of fun for me, and I hope it's enjoyable for you guys too. Let me tell you a couple of quick things I wanted to touch on before we get into today's topics. Today's webinar is called Time, Money, and the Future. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a sec. But before we get going, I wanted to ask you that in the future, like roughly on Thursday, I'm going to once again post on Patreon asking you guys to, in the comment section, give me whatever question you want to do. Leave it there because what I've noticed is that a lot of people who agree with your questions or your topics, they'll give it a little heart, you know, and that way I know that, this topic is something that a lot of people are interested in. So if in the future, I post that like next Thursday, I'll post, what questions for this Sunday or what topics for this Sunday. And if you see somebody who's doing a topic that you like, hit the heart. So that way I'll know that it's something that you guys are interested in. Okay, that's number one. And number two, last week I did with like full slides, right? And some people didn't like that. They just wanted audio only. Some people like the slides, but they would have liked it all at once. Okay. Now, of course, this is a work in progress. So in this episode, I'm going to present a slide with the outline of the entire broadcast so that you have it in front of you so you know more or less where I'm going with each topic. Okay. It might kill the suspense, but it can give you an overview of where I'm going and potentially, the topics that you're interested in, you'll see that I'll be covering them. Okay. So look, this is a work in progress, and I'd appreciate it if you guys would give me your feedback once this is over. Because remember, I post these recordings, the recordings of this webinar will be posted probably tomorrow in the morning, Monday in the morning. And once it's posted in the comment section, it would be great if you gave me feedback as to what you thought was good or bad or whatnot. Okay. So anyway, so let's get cracking. And yeah, here is the, oops, there we go. Here are the topics for today. This is what we're going to be talking about. Okay. So let me get through it right now. The first thing that I want to talk about in the recap for April 5th of the year of our Lord 2020, God help us all. We're going to talk about the coronavirus numbers. Okay, so let me show them to you real quick. Let me see here. Let me just do something. The coronavirus numbers are, as you can imagine, kind of horrifying. And here they are for your viewing pleasure. The coronavirus numbers worldwide are 1,226,000 cases, confirmed cases. The confirmed cases, I'm tending to think that they don't really matter because a lot of people have it, and they're not they're asymptomatic, or their symptoms are so mild that they don't think it's coronavirus, right? So the number of cases, I'm a bit indifferent to it, but the number of deaths, that's interesting here. Here we've got 66,000, okay? And the numbers in the United States are incredibly troubling. There are 312,000 confirmed cases and more to the point, 8,486 deaths. Now, this is the number that I'm really interested in. This one, total deaths. See, it's 8,452. The previous number that you saw was as of this morning, but as of close of business yesterday, April 4th, it was 8,452, and the day before that had been 7,121. Now here below, you see the chart of the daily deaths, and it is just increasing. You know, there's no end in sight to this thing. Yesterday, 1,331 people died. Okay, I mean that's a remarkable number, and like I've been telling you guys for a long time, that I think that these numbers are going to continue to increase, and I don't think that there's any stopping them, not realistically. And so, you know, we just have to grin and bear it, quite frankly, because this is going to burn through the whole population. That's my thinking. And all of this mass stuff, and well, we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, so this is where we're at with coronavirus, with the famous Corona Chan. Now, insofar as the unemployment numbers that came out last week, 6.6 million people claimed unemployment insurance. So in 2 weeks, we have roughly 10 million people have claimed unemployment. Now, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released its unemployment figures for the month of March, but do keep in mind the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, their numbers, the numbers that came out were absurd, because they said that the U3 unemployment, U3, that's the measure of full-time employment, that was at 4.5%, the unemployment rather. Now, of course, that makes no sense compared to what has happened over the last 4 weeks, but you got to keep in mind that the Bureau of Labor Statistics tends to focus at the beginning of the month with the beginning workers of the month. So the real numbers, the real unemployment figure, when the first Friday of May rolls around, which is when the Bureau of Labor Statistics is going to release its figures, that's going to be exceedingly troubling. I mean, if you tell me that it's going to be 20%, I'd be like, yeah, I can believe that, because we all know that the numbers of unemployed are just going through the roof, okay? Now, the lockdown, it seems at this point that it is indefinite. People keep saying, you know, they said in mid-March that, oh, by the end of March, you know, or maybe the first week of April, we'll see. Now April rolls around and they're like stretching it out to the end of April. I mean, look, like I've said before, and I've said countless times before, and I might be boring you already, but this thing is going to continue on through all of the summer, and at best, we'll go back to quote unquote normal life by Labor Day, at best, okay? But the political leadership will continue to stretch it out. They'll just keep on moving the goalpost. They have to. I mean, think of it from their point of view. If they were to go out on TV and say, my fellow citizens, we are going to be locked down for the whole summer, people would freak out. I mean, they'd have a complete meltdown. So if you notice, see, nobody's talking when this is going to end. And Trump, who's an exceptionally good politician, he loved to have people obsess about trivia, obsess about whatever trivia they can latch on to, the press in particular. The press has been just incredibly stupid. Like they're like very stupid dogs chasing, you know, the car tires instead of paying attention to what the car actually is. You see what I'm saying? You know, I'm not a very good metaphor, but I think you get the picture. The press, well, there's a reason that right now the press is the most unpopular institution in the United States. It's unsurprising. So yeah, it's going to keep on going like that they're not paying attention to the real issues. But you should be thinking to yourself that this lockdown is going to be indefinite, and you should be thinking to yourself that, how can I put it? However bad it is now, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because of inactivity. That's the reason. See, there is no demand because people are not doing anything, because people are locked at home. There are a few marginal businesses like, say, Netflix, right? Yeah, they're doing great guns, you know, all kinds of subscribers, but that's just one business, okay? The wider economy it's kaflooey, it's gone. And I will venture to argue that at this time, it is gone forever. Even if the economy were to restart tomorrow, even if on Monday morning, tomorrow morning, everybody just got up and went to work, they'd find, I mean, I'd say that roughly a quarter to a third of workers would not find their companies open anymore, their place of employment open anymore, okay? Because it's restaurants, retail, all these businesses, they're kaflooey. But we'll get to that in a moment. The first thing I wanted to focus on is time. Time. We are in this enforced lockdown, and this enforced lockdown, we are not going to be allowed to get out of it, okay? In a practical sense. Of course, you can step out in most places, but in some cases you get a ticket, you get fined, and in some cases, in some Asian countries, they can go out and try to kill you. I think in the Philippines, they're doing that little thing, so that's kind of creepy, but anyway. You are locked out of your job, so use your time wisely. This is a brilliant opportunity for GLRP. Get fit, learn, read, plan. Those 4 issues in that order. Get fit, learn, read, plan. GLRP. I know it's a stupid acronym, but I want you to keep it in the forefront of your head during this period of, for all intents and purposes, indefinite lockdown, which in my estimation will continue until Labor Day. That's most of April, May, June, July, August. That's almost 5 months. 5 months, 150 days. 150 days times 8 hours. 150 days times 8 hours, how much is that? That's what, 1,200 hours? Is my math serving me properly? Give me a show of hands if I'm doing it right. 1,200 hours, right? 1,200 hours. What can you do with 1,200 hours of your time? Think about it. Think of the opportunities that you could enjoy with that. I mean, first of all, you can get fit. Get fit in the sense of like not just working out, not just running or whatever, but also eating right. You're not going to restaurants anymore because there aren't any restaurants anymore, okay? For the most part. There's McDonald's and a few other places, but you have to cook your own food. You can start cooking healthy food. Huh? You can get into shape, lose the weight that you've always said that you wanted to. Well, now's the time. You can learn things. Learn things like, for instance, you can learn to play an instrument that you've always wanted to, learn a language that you've always wanted to, learn about some subjects that you've always wanted to explore but never had the time. You wanted to, but this came up, that came up, whatever came up. Now is the time. You can read whatever you want. And most books are available. You don't even have to get to Amazon to ship them to you. You can just download them into your tablet or your computer or your phone even. And read the books that you've always wanted to read. Read the books that you've been told all your life are so good, like 1984, like Animal Farm, like the Brothers Karamazov. You guys know that I'm a big Dostoevsky junkie, right? And I keep talking about Dostoevsky. Now's the time to do that. Now's the time to feed your brain. And finally, the issue of planning. See, most people say that they want to be independent, that they want to do this, that, the other. Most people talk about that, but the reality of life gets in the way. It's not always an issue of that they don't have the will. It's that sometimes their obligations prevent them. But now fate has given you the opportunity to really figure out what you want to do with your life and potentially change it in a positive direction. Perhaps the life you were living was shitty, but now you can change it around. You have the time to plan and figure that out. I'm directing this more to the younger people in my audience because I think that so many young people are sort of like caught up in the rat race and they figure that they have to do this, they have to go to college, then their first job, and this, that, the other. Well, here is this vacation where you can figure shit out, okay? And the beauty of this time is that for all intents and purposes, you do not have to pay rent. And this is a reality, and let's get into the issue of money. Okay. But before I go into that, I just want to, I really want to hammer home this issue. You have the chance to do anything with this time. Anything. Don't be fool enough to waste it watching movies or old TV shows that you already watched, or playing video games or jerking off. This is the time of your life that this is a blessing. Think of it in those terms. And think of it something else. You do not have any worries, because if you can't pay some bill or whatever, nobody else can either. Okay? You're not going to be alone on the boat insofar as that's concerned. Think of it in those terms. Think of it in the sense that like, you do not have to worry about anything except who you are, getting yourself in shape, learning the things that you've always wanted to learn, reading the books you've always wanted to read, and planning for the things that you want to achieve with your life, thinking about your life. All of this time, 5 months, think how valuable this is. Okay, now let's move on to the money issue. Okay, now you guys have noticed that the Federal Reserve is buying up a lot of stock, right? Well, what's the point of that? Why are they buying up assets? Well, you see, it's quite simple. Short answer. They want to make sure that asset prices remain stable for the sake of banks and pension funds. Now, why do they want to have asset prices stable? Well, because a lot of banks and a lot of pension funds have huge positions in different asset classes. Now, when you think of an asset, you and I would usually think of like real estate or something physical, tangible, commodities maybe, right? Or like gold. But in this case, we're talking about financial assets, specifically stocks and bonds, see? And so what happens is that a lot of these institutional investors, banks and pension funds, they have huge positions in the stock market and the bond market. Now, the prices of these assets collapsing, or let me phrase it, the prices of these assets, stocks and bonds, has been inflating over the decades, right? Most especially over the last 12 years, ever since the 2008 global financial crisis. Now, in these 12 years or so, the price of stock, the price of bonds, they become ridiculous. They become absurd. It's not so much the price of bonds, let me rephrase that. It's that so many companies that never should have issued investment grade bonds have issued investment grade bonds. And so pension funds and big institutional investors and banks have a lot of these so-called investment grade bonds that aren't really. They're more closer to junk than investment grade, right? And these assets are falling. Now, why were they so high? It was because the Fed was printing so much money and lending money so cheaply. It was lending money so cheaply that all of these different players, these companies, they issued all of this debt, and this debt is way overvalued. And the stocks of these companies is way overvalued. What should be the real price to earnings ratio of companies of say like 10 to 1, maybe 15 to 1 tops. Well, right now the average, or before was the average, before this whole fiasco, the average was closer to 35 to 1, for crying out loud. That's absurd, okay? And so these guys, the Federal Reserve, they inflated asset prices. And so everybody was at the trough, feeding on this cheap money. All the little piggies were there, right? But now all of a sudden, all the prices of all these assets has collapsed, right? Why are they collapsing? Well, because when companies are no longer selling because the consumers are not there, because the consumers are locked down, then the price of that company falls because that company isn't going to be making any revenue now, is it? Of course not. See, General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, they are not selling any cars. And why aren't they selling any cars? Because nobody's driving, because they're all stuck at home because of this thing, okay? And so, of course, Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, their stock prices collapse. And what happens with the bonds that those companies issued? The bonds that are on the books of pension funds, the bonds that are on the books of banks, well, they collapse too. Because, of course, if a company isn't making any revenue, people who are holding these bonds, i.e. the debt of this company, they start to think to themselves, holy cow, I'm not going to get my money back because General Motors, I own bonds in General Motors, but General Motors is not selling any cars. So where are they going to come up with the cash to pay me for the money I lent them? Because that's what a bond is. It's a loan. And so, of course, they start selling these bonds, and the bond prices collapse. Now, why does it matter for pension funds specifically, and banks, but pension funds especially, that asset prices collapse? Well, because they generate their revenue from these assets, right? It used to be that they generated the revenue from the dividend of the stock or the yield of the bond, but today, no. Today, they are basically hedge funds. They buy and sell stocks and bonds, and they make their money from the price differential. And so all of a sudden, with everything falling, they are only losing money. And so they have the incentive to sell their positions quickly so that they don't lose even more money. And so the Fed, what did the Fed go out and do? What has it done? Quite obviously, I don't know what they've announced, but I don't need to hear their announcement to know what they have been doing, because it's obvious. They've been printing money and going out there to put a floor on the stock market. And we currently see the stock market at like 21,000, Dow Jones Industrial Average. NASDAQ is also holding steady, S&P as well. Okay, what do you think that's going on, huh? They are acting as a buyer of last resort. They are going out of their way to keep anything from collapsing insofar as stocks and bonds are concerned. They are the ultimate plunge protection team, okay? For those of you who don't know, a plunge protection team is, it was an informal group between the Treasury and the Federal Reserve back in 2008, and before the 2008 crisis. They were like these buyers who would, like shadowy, would go around and prop up stuff and keep things from plunging, hence the name, plunge protection team, right? And it came out like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's ancient history, it's not important for this conversation. What's important is that the Federal Reserve is going to do everything in its power to keep up stock prices, to keep up asset prices. Now, here comes an interesting part. Asset price deflation begins soon, but here I left it a little bit ambiguous, so let me clarify. When I talk about asset price deflation begins soon, what I'm talking about is not stocks and bonds. I do believe at this time, and I could be very wrong, but I do believe that at this time, the stock market and the bond market will be zombie markets. They will be maintaining at the level that they're at. And the Federal Reserve is going to be doing all kinds of magic tricks, financial magic tricks, to maintain this even keel, this quote unquote price stability. Because, of course, if they allow the stock market and the bond market to collapse, insurance companies go belly up, banks go belly up, the whole financial system goes belly up. They can't let that happen. They won't let that happen, okay? And so that particular asset class, stocks and bonds, financial assets, at this time, I'm thinking that we have seen the bottom. Yeah, I think that for the foreseeable future, and when I talk about the foreseeable future, I'm talking about the next 2 weeks, okay? Not more than that, because you can't even see beyond a week, quite frankly, with the shit that's going on, okay? I mean, back in the day, but a year ago, people would say the foreseeable future meant the next quarter or two. Now, I don't see the foreseeable future as more than a week or two, okay? So that caveat, you understand that caveat, right? Okay. For the time being, asset prices will maintain, financial assets, stocks and bonds will maintain at this level, okay? People are investors in particular, and I've talked to a lot of investors over this past week. It's been quite a ride for a lot of them. Most of them lost their shirt, and a lot of them aren't returning my call, because back in January, February especially, I talked to a whole bunch of people that I knew, and I told them about coronavirus and what might happen. I didn't think it would be this pandemic, but I did think that it would interrupt the supply chains and that the stock markets would have a huge correction. I made a huge fucking bet on that, and I came up a cropper. I told these guys, and now they're all pissed off at me. See, the truth about Cassandra, Cassandra, the Greek legend, she could see the future, and she told people about the future, and what happened to her? They hated her. Eventually, they executed her. Yeah, true story. Well, it's a legend, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here, at this time, investors have lost their shirt, and they are trying to recover. They are trying to lick their wounds and see how they proceed. Nobody knows shit. Nobody has any clue about what's going on, But it's quite obvious if you take a step back, you realize what's going on. The Federal Reserve is going to do everything in its power to maintain quote unquote price stability of assets, most especially stocks and bonds, because of the reasons I mentioned. And so ignore those asset classes and look at the other asset classes. What are the other asset classes? Well, they're principally real estate, commodities, which includes precious metals. Those are the other asset classes, right? And so you have to ask yourself, what's going to happen to these asset classes? What's going to happen to property values? What's going to happen to commodities like foodstuffs, like oil, like gold, silver, platinum, okay? Okay, well, let's go with precious metals for the time being. Silver and especially platinum, they are industrial metals. Platinum in particular is used very heavily in the catalytic converters of cars. The catalytic converter, of course, is the mechanism by which there is the removal of a lot of pollution. It's necessary in modern cars. In fact, it's required. And so for industrial usage, platinum has been used rather extensively. And because of the collapse of the car market, the price of platinum has collapsed. It is what, like half, if not less, than the price of gold per ounce, when historically it was a lot more expensive than gold. But that's another story. But that's the reason, because there was a demand for platinum, for the use of platinum as an industrial metal. Okay. Now, gold is kind of hanging steady, and silver is kind of like in the doldrums. Okay. Now, that's all good and fine. What's happening with agricultures and oil futures? Okay, agricultures in general, they're hanging steady. They're not really moving around very much. Oil, of course, well, we're in the middle of this oil war. And last week, Trump, let me backtrack a little bit. This oil war between Russia and Saudi Arabia, whereby they failed to reach an agreement and they both decided to open the spigots and produce as much oil as possible, because on the one hand, they failed to make an agreement, but on the other hand, they both have the incentive to destroy the US shale market. Okay, and so they opened up the spigot right at the worst possible moment, because they flooded the market with oil just when demand for oil collapsed. Demand for oil collapsed because nobody's driving and nobody's flying an airplane. Okay, so demand for oil has collapsed. Oil dropped at one point. I saw it. It was at 18 and change per barrel of West Texas Intermediate. Holy shit, right? And then last week, Trump tweeted out, I don't know what the fuck he tweeted out, but ultimately what happened was that this random tweet of our fearless leader made the oil prices jump by 25%, which is like, holy cow, right? One tweet made it go up 25%. But then you look at the number and it was actually just $5, which in the past, $5 was, not that big of a slide or a jump, right? And so far as the oil price is concerned, that shows the new reality. Oil prices are going to continue to remain low because there is no demand. That's the issue. Oil prices rise or fall because of demand, because the supply of oil has always been relatively well known. It's the demand that changes. And the demand, the last time there was a supply side shock was back in 1979, when the Shah's government in Iran was overthrown and the Ayatollahs took over. And during that revolution, coup d'etat, call it what you will, production of oil stopped in Iran. And Iran at that time was, percentage-wise, a bigger producer than it is now. And that shock hit the West hard. Okay, that was a supply side interruption of oil, and that led to a spike in the price of oil. But here we have a different problem. We have a collapse in demand. A collapse in demand because nobody's driving and nobody's flying. There's the same amount of oil being produced, but what happens if the demand falls? Well, the price of that good falls, right? Supply and demand, baby. So there's all this oil out there. It's going for chump change. It's going to continue to fall. If you tell me that in 2 months' time, the price of oil is hitting $10 a barrel, I would not be surprised. If you're a time traveler from a month from now and you tell me this, I would nod and say, yeah, that would be expected. Yeah, $10 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate. Yeah, that's fucking crazy, okay? That's world historical, okay? But we're living in those kinds of times, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, why am I bringing up the price of oil? the price of oil is going to mean that a lot of oil companies in the United States are going to go belly up. And the debt that they have put out there, because oil is a capital intensive business, and so they put out a lot of bonds to get the capital necessary to do their projects, their exploration projects, and set up the wells and whatnot. A lot of these companies are going to go under. Okay, I mean, this is catastrophic for oil companies, for the bond market, for the whole thing. Okay, but understand the mechanics of where this is coming from. Now, real estate. I always tell you guys to listen to the words of the barons, the Rothschild. That old man said, buy when there's blood on the streets. And he was a wise son of a bitch. And he's dead right, okay? Real estate is gonna be where it's at. Because what's happening now is that people are holding on to their properties and they're not lowering the prices because they're hoping, their fingers crossed that, in a little while, things will turn around. And so prices of real estate have stopped going up, right? Because there's no real demand for property prices, but the prices have not lowered yet because the sellers are still hopeful. And after all, this has only gone on for a couple of weeks, okay? In a couple of months, it's gonna be a whole different story. You roll around in, say, September, it's gonna be a completely different story. And why is it gonna be completely different? Well, because you see, a lot of people have taken out mortgages on their loans, right? A lot of people bought their property, whatsoever that property might be, with a loan. You see, the problem we're having is that since there's no demand, no money is coming in to anybody, so they can't pay stuff. People can't pay their rent and people can't pay their mortgages. There is an estimate last week that figured that for April 1st, 30% of homeowners with a mortgage outstanding would not pay their mortgage because they don't have the cash to do so. Think of it, a third. Back in 2008, when people were freaking out over the mortgage-backed securities and the derivatives based on those mortgage-backed securities, right? The whole TARP program of $700 billion that was set up to salvage the mortgage-backed security market, right? It was premised on the almost impossible belief that 7% of mortgage holders would default. 7%. That was like the apocalypse for that market. 7%. And here is a reliable estimate from JP Morgan, no less than JP Morgan, saying that it could be as high as 30% for the 1st of April. Forget about the 1st of May, okay? This is catastrophic. It is catastrophic for people who are, for landlords, basically. I mean, this thing for landlords, for investors, this is a catastrophe, okay? And I want to do a quick parenthesis here to talk about the fact that there are a lot of people who say that that this was planned somehow. There are a lot of assholes in the world who do not understand shit from Shinola. And they're saying that this was all planned. It's all part of the plan, man. It's the New World Order, did it on purpose, man. They have us all on lockdown so that we'll be their slaves, and that's why they have us at home doing nothing and not producing anything. And therefore, all these fucking people who are supposed to run the New World Order, they're going broke. That's what's going on, man. Okay, so to think that the people who run the New World Order, quote unquote, did this on fucking purpose, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Every single fucking investor, everybody who is drawing an income based on rent is freaking the fuck out. I'll tell you right now, and I'll tell you guys because you're a small audience and you guys are like on Patreon, so I know that you guys are serious and you're not going to talk about this shit in some random corner on the internet. But I personally have quite a bit of properties, right? I have a property portfolio because it's a sensible thing to do. And every single one of my tenants is basically, hinted or outright told me that they're going to have problems making their payment for the 1st of May. Thank God that they were able to do the 1st of April, right? And yeah, sure, I've got like deposits from these people and whatnot, but come the 1st of May, I would be surprised if I get 20% of the expected income on the 1st of May from my real estate portfolio. I would count myself lucky to get 20%. Now, in my own case, I'm not particularly worried because I've always believed that the real estate is something that I don't want to be thinking about too much. So the real estate portfolio I have, I own outright. No mortgages, none of that shit. So it's financially less sophisticated, but it was done, I did it just so that I didn't have to think about it and worry about it, because that's the way I like to live my life, that I don't worry about shit. I don't wake up in the middle of the night, okay? And when you have a loan, you're always worried. I don't have any loans. Right now, the biggest expense that I own, the biggest liability I have at this time is I think I owe the gas bill for this month. And I haven't gotten around to hitting the little button on my phone to pay it off, right? So that's my biggest liability, and that's like what, 140 euros or some shit like that. You know, yeah, that's my biggest liability, okay? Because I personally do not believe in having outstanding loans for reasons that are personal. I'm not going to get into, but basically, when I was young, I got in trouble with loans, and I got the shit kicked out of me, and I had to ask hat in hand to some friends who were kind enough to lend me the money, that I just needed some cash to cover this hole that I was in. And after that, I never borrowed money. But okay, the point. See, people who are rentiers, not renters, rentiers, that is people who derive their income from rents, they're fucked, okay? Now, they are not going to get any income, and a lot of them, like I said, have mortgages outstanding. And very quickly, they're going to realize that they cannot service their mortgages. And so they're going to start thinking to themselves, well, what do I do? And they're going to start to come to the conclusion that the only thing they can do is to get rid of their property, because prices are holding. They'll see, you know, they look around and the market's still sort of like holding steady, and they'll decide, you know, things are going south. I'm not getting any rental income from this property. Maybe it'll be smart to cash out now while I still can. And that's when everybody's going to rush for the door. And that's when all the real estate prices are going to start to fall. And what's going to happen is that at first, people are going to be very, very reluctant to lower their prices beyond that threshold where they're underwater with their loan. Yeah. But eventually they're going to be forced to, because they're going to start to figure to themselves, it's better to be underwater by a little bit than by a lot. That's what they're going to be thinking. Because remember, if you borrowed money, say you borrowed $100,000 for a property, okay, and you went and bought that property, but later you sold it for $90,000, right? Well, you can take those $90,000 and pay off the mortgage, but you still owe the difference, which is $10,000, right? This is a hypothetical. Of course, prices are not this small for these properties, but you get my point. See, what will happen is that owners of real estate, they're going to be watching the market, and they're going to see as the prices fall, and as they fall, they're going to say to themselves, I don't care if I'm underwater by 10,000, 20,000, 100,000. I just want to get out of this quickly, because right now maybe I'm going to be underwater by only $50,000, but if I wait around longer, maybe I'll be underwater by $100,000. You see? See, it becomes a game of musical chairs. It becomes a game of a reverse auction, basically, that sellers start lowering the price, trying to beat the other sellers so that they'll find a buyer, you see? And that's how a real estate market goes down the tubes. Now, how do I know all this shit? Well, because basically the same fucking thing happened in Chile back in 1973, 1972. Yeah, when the fucking communists were in charge in Chile, right? Those fuckers just made everybody's life miserable. And finally in 1972 or so, people were fed up and fuck it, you know, they wanted to leave. And they started trying to sell their assets. And as they tried to sell their assets, they found that everybody else was trying to sell their assets too, their real estate assets, okay? And they were willing to throw away very valuable property. I'll tell you, this is a true story. The husband of my mother's sister, that's how close, my uncle, right? He was an architecture student back in 72, 73, right? And he had this little MG 125, okay? This little piece of shit car, right? He was, you know, he's an architect. He's a student, college student, right? And the thing is, he had this car, and cars were considered very valuable, that they maintained their value very well. And he was offered a luxury apartment. I am not fucking kidding you. a luxury apartment for his car. Not fucking kidding you. It was a 100 square meter apartment. And he was offered that. They were so desperate to sell it that they would willingly trade the apartment for his car because they figured that with a car, they could drive off to Argentina. That's how desperate they were, okay? And more to the point, that's how far prices had fallen. And my uncle, you know, he kicks himself to this day and he keeps on telling the story because he didn't do it. Yeah, he didn't do it. He thought, oh no, I'm not gonna do it. My car is my car. You know, he's a fucking idiot. He was a college student. What the fuck did he know? He didn't know shit. And so he didn't do it. And so, you know, and now he has a story that he's been dining out on the story for years, but he keeps saying to himself that he was a fucking fool, that he should have sold the car for the apartment. Yeah, because he'd still have the apartment. Because that car now, it's in car heaven. It's rust and nothing, right? But that luxury apartment, still standing. Oh yeah, beautiful as ever. Yeah, and so that's the point. See, real estate prices in this kind of deflationary collapse, you're going to be able to get stuff for peanuts. Okay. Okay. So I've gone on long enough about this asset deflation stuff, but I think you get the point, right? So long as there's no demand, don't worry about agriculturals and don't worry about precious metals either. Precious metals are going to come into play in a little bit more. I'm going to talk about them more specifically, but focus on real estate. Keep your eye on the real estate market. And this leads to the next point. Where to invest? Nowhere. At this time, there's nothing to invest in. Nothing. Okay? Don't invest in fucking anything because there is nothing to invest in. Okay? Okay, you say to me, well, what if I go and like short the market? Good luck with that. You think that you're the first person who's thinking that now is the time to short the market? No. The time to short the market was, the fact of the matter is, and I hate to sound like an asshole bragging, but I'll be that asshole who brags. The time to short the market was in early February. That was the time to short the market when everybody was like hunky-dory and they were like, you know, bebopping along without a care in the world. That was the time to short the market. I shorted the market not because I thought that this shit was gonna go as big a south as it did. No, I shorted the market because I figured that with the shit going on in China, there'd be interruptions in the supply chain. And a lot of companies, especially tech companies, Apple and whatnot, would take a hit and the stock market would go down. But I thought it was going to take place in, you know, April, May, June even, right? I mean, I bought a whole, I sold a bunch of puts. The majority of my position was into early May, for crying out loud, right? That's how long I figured this thing would take. And I was thinking of just a supply chain interruption, not a fucking pandemic, end of the world, end of the global economy shit. No. Okay. So anyway, people are talking now about getting into short selling. No, don't do that. Don't do that because there's no reason to get into short selling now because everybody has the same idea. And so what's going to happen? You're going to have a short squeeze. For those of you who don't know what the short squeeze is, it's when people put out short positions. They figure that the price of a stock is or other asset is going to go down. And the thing is, see, they all sell at the same time. And what happens is that all of a sudden, because of this, the price goes up and they have to cover their position and they have to buy back all these stocks or bonds or other underlying asset that they sold short. And because of this buyback, the price shoots up even more and it becomes a self-reinforcing cycle and wipes out all the short sellers. We've been seeing that in the market constantly over the last 2 weeks, constantly. Don't do anything. Now is not the time to invest because nobody knows where this is going. That's the key point. The things I'm telling you now, I can tell you that, oh, it looks like this, it looks like that, but nobody really knows what's going to happen. Like I said before, for me, you know, the long term is a week away because I have no idea what's going to happen beyond that. It's a fog. Nobody knows anything. So when you don't know what is going on, you don't invest in anything. You just sit tight. Take it easy. You know, don't let the money in your pocket burn a hole in it. Yeah, it's because the shit is not on fire now, is it? No, of course not. Okay, leave it there. You've got cash. Don't buy anything at this time unless you're absolutely positively sure that you know exactly how you're going to get your money out of this deal or out of this investment or whatever it is that you're thinking of getting into, okay? I mean, I just want to be as explicit as possible because nobody fucking knows. Okay, so now we come on to the next issue, which is precious metals. Okay, here's the thing about precious metals. I mentioned before about the industrial uses of it. Okay, all that is priced in insofar as gold, silver, platinum, right? So the prices that we have for the precious metals at this time seem to be like, okay, they seem to be steady. Now the issue will become whether the currency, the dollar, which is the reserve currency, whether it's gonna deflate or hyperinflate. I'm gonna talk about that in just a little bit, okay? For the time being, I actually don't think that whether the dollar deflates or hyperinflates is really the issue. No, I think that the real issue is the solvency of financial institutions. Yeah, I think that that's the real issue, okay? Now, let me backtrack a little bit. I was talking before about stocks and bonds, right? And how the Federal Reserve is maintaining prices, asset prices. Okay. These companies are not making any money because they're not selling. These companies are shutting down factories. They are laying off workers. That's why we have 10 million unemployed and probably a lot more. These companies, they are going bankrupt. A bankrupt company, how much is their stock worth? It's worth zero because they're bankrupt, because they are no longer functioning entities. This is going to happen with a lot of companies, okay? A lot of companies that were always around for decades, in some cases centuries even, they're going to go belly up, okay? Simple as that. The Fed is keeping up stock prices and bond prices, but they can't do it indefinitely. They're going to slowly let these prices slide down, because what they want, or what they don't want rather, is swift movements in the market. They don't want that, no way. If there's going to be movement in the market, let it be slow, so it's predictable. It's a little bit like boiling a frog. You've heard the story, right? If you have a pot of water and the water is boiling and you toss a frog into it, the frog jumps right out. But if you have a pot of cold water and put a frog in it and slowly turn up at the heat until it's boiling, that frog won't leave. That frog will stay there until it's boiled alive. The Fed wants to slowly deflate everything and let the prices fall because it cannot keep up the prices of everything. It's not Superman, okay? It's not Atlas holding up the world. It can't satisfy that function. So it's going to slowly let it fall, let it sink. And so every company is eventually going to start to go belly up, okay? It's carts to horses, baby. This is inevitable. Now, because of this, precious metals, how can I put it? I'm very confused about things now. And I am extremely confused about the prices of precious metals because gold should be a lot higher than it actually is. So I figure it's being manipulated, number one. Because if it weren't being manipulated, it would be a lot higher. If it weren't being manipulated, if it were a lot higher, I would have gotten into it in a big way, me personally. The fact that it is not so high leads me to conclude that it's manipulated, leads me to conclude that they might shove the price down further just to fuck with people, yeah? Just to give the illusion that the dollar is still strong and there's no inflation, hyperinflation, or any of that shit, because people are looking at the price of gold like a hawk, right? But gold is a very small market, all right? Okay, so anyway, going back to the issue of, where was I? Oh, my notes are all fucked up here. The issue of, yeah, banks. My concern at this time is banks, because a lot of these banks have a lot of positions with bonds and whatnot for a lot of companies that are never going to pay back those bonds, okay? So my concern at this time is if a bank can pay me back my money. That's my concern, okay? And that's the only thing I'm worried about at this time, whether my bank is solvent. Or let me phrase that. See, some banks, a lot of banks have insurance. You know, insurance in the case of if they go insolvent, their government or their central bank or wherever it is will cover all the depositors, which is great, okay? But you have to make sure that your money is in such a program. You'd be surprised, a lot of people think that their cash is federally guaranteed, like in the United States, or guaranteed by the government of wherever you are. But they look at the fine print and they find out that it's not guaranteed, because sometimes there are accounts that are interest bearing, and those interest bearing accounts are not covered by the FDIC. The FDIC is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insures depositors in the United States. You're not covered, okay? If you have interest-bearing accounts, even an interest-bearing checking account, which seems like pretty trivial, that's not covered. You got to make sure that your money is in an account that is covered, that is guaranteed. Be very careful about that, and look at it now while you still can, now while you can still move your money around, okay? Because my concern would be a financial institution that goes insolvent. Now, of course, the Federal Reserve in the United States and all the central banks, they're terrified of this. They are terrified because they look at it like a series of dominoes. One goes down and they all go down because they're all doing business with one another, okay? And because they're all doing business with one another, they have exposure, risk exposure to all to each other, rather, excuse me. And so because of that, the Federal Reserve has been putting out swap lines to all the central banks around the world. Swap lines are basically facilities whereby a foreign central bank can put assets as collateral with the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve lends it dollars, lots of dollars, as many as they need, okay? And the Federal Reserve can determine that, XYZ central bank, wherever, they don't need to put up collateral. So it's basically a free loan, no collateral, no guarantee, just to make sure there is enough dollars in that central bank to cover any dollar requirements, okay? Because they don't want the dollar markets to freeze up, because if they freeze up, then again, the whole financial system collapses. I mean, this is 2008, but like cubed, okay? This shit is far worse than 2008. This is orders of magnitude greater. And so the issue becomes, you want to pay attention to your bank or banks, and it's smart to have multiple accounts in multiple banks so that, if one goes tits up, the others, you might be able to save your money from the others, you know what I'm saying? And I personally, I can't tell you what to do. I'm not telling you what to invest in or anything like that, but I personally have a bit of it in cash. In cash, I mean like in physical cash, right? Just in case, okay? Not a lot, but just enough. Because, yeah, I'm fucking scared. I'm really fucking scared. And finally, the issue of precious metals. Okay. Well, I'll tell you, what the fuck. You're just like my guys, so I'll tell you the truth. I'm thinking of getting into precious metals in a big way. Yeah. I've already made inquiries, and I've already set up like a test run to get a little bit, not a hell of a lot, mostly silver. Because, like I said, gold scares me the way it's being manipulated. I figure that silver will be a more accurate, will reflect its true value more accurately than gold. Platinum, I don't know enough about platinum, and because it's an industrial metal, not really a precious metal, I don't know about it, but silver, I'm down with silver. Okay, I'd be down with gold, but for the reasons I mentioned. I personally am probably going to move in heavily into silver. Okay. Yeah, that's yeah, I don't mind telling you guys, but don't tell anybody. Okay, moving on into the future. Okay, this whole shit is going on because of CV, the coronavirus, right? Is there a cure? No, there is not. Okay, people will continue to push that there's a cure to give you false hope. Okay, because a populace that has false hope is more docile, because they figure that a populace that has hope, I mean, think of it, if you don't have any hope, if you're, zero hope, then you become desperate and you're like, what the fuck, why not? Let's do this, let's riot, let's do whatever the fuck, because you have no hope, right? But if you have a little bit of hope, you're gonna toe the line. That's what they're figuring, okay? They figure you're gonna toe the line and be a good little boy, a good little citizen, and do what you are told. And that's what they're banking on, okay? So you, they're going to keep on selling you this bullshit that there's a cure, that this malaria medication cures it. Look, correlation is not causality. Okay, a lot of people are saying, "Ooh, I took this treatment with malaria drug and I got cured." Yeah, well, would you have gotten cured anyway without the malaria drug? Huh? Riddle me this, Batman. There's no any kind of scientific proof that the person would not have gotten cured anyway without the malaria drug. See, that's the bottom line issue. Okay, so yeah, I mean, anecdotally, this guy, the other guy, fuck that. There's no clear evidence that it cures you. You know, I'm sick as a dog, and then I drink a glass of Coca-Cola, and then I get better. Does that mean that the Coke cured my disease or whatever it was? Huh? No, of course not. Nobody in their right mind would say that. It's the same problem with these anti-vaxxers, because I'm pro-vaccine. I mean, I'm anti-vaccine coronavirus, very anti, and I'm gonna get into that in just a second, but I'm very pro-vaccine for children, like rubella, measles, mumps, diphtheria. I'm totally in favor of those because they are shown to actually work. But the problem is that, see, a lot of times the kids get those injections for those vaccines at approximately the same time that they start showing symptoms of autism. They happen roughly at the same time, but they are not caused one by the other, okay? Autism is not a result of fucking vaccines. That's just fucking stupid. It just so happens that children who are autistic start to show evidently symptoms of their autism at roughly the same time that they get injected with these vaccines, okay? Again, it's the Coca-Cola when I'm sick problem, you know? Did the Coca cause me to get better? No. Did the vaccines cause people to have autism? No. But people are stupid, okay? And that's what's going on with this cure shit. When this, when the malaria drug shit, you know, it's gonna fade out in a couple of weeks, right? And there'll be some other drug, some other treatment, some other whatever the fuck that's gonna cure them. And they're gonna say that this is the bee's knees insofar as cures and whatnot, and we should have hope. This is the one that'll cure it. And, you know, it'll be the same story, and they'll go through the cycle like, you know, 3-4 times. Yeah, it'll probably be like every month there'll be a new drug of the month, you know, some whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, okay? And yeah, that's how it's going to be. Now, vaccine. This has me real fucking worried because that pig, Bill Gates, he's a fucking pig. He's a money-hungry whore. Yeah, he's talking about vaccines, and he's talking about how people should get a certificate that they've gotten a vaccine. Fuck that. Fuck that. Okay. Number one, a vaccine takes, you know, between 18 and 30 months to develop for anything. It's not a simple process. Why? Because the side effects. You got to test people for a long goddamn fucking time to make sure that the side effects are not worse than the fucking disease, obviously. Okay. I mean, there have been cases, lots of cases, where medicines that seem to be perfectly fine and, you know, were just aces, right, turned out to have horrifying side effects. Yeah, like Thorazine. Look that up. Yeah, no, not Thorazine. Is it Thorazine? The one that had the babies, the women who are pregnant have these horribly deformed children. Yeah, see, during the 1950s, it was horrifying. This shit happens all the time. That's the most famous case. It happens all the fucking time, right? So any vaccine is going to take, you know, 18 to 30 months to properly vet to make sure that it doesn't cause worse damage than it cures. Okay? So number one, there's that problem. Number two, see, this virus is burning through the whole world. Nobody's talking about the R0 figure anymore. Remember they were talking about the R0 figure? The R0 figure is the transmissibility of a disease. If you have R0 over 1, I mean, R0 means basically, you see, if you have a disease that has an R0 2, that means that if a person is carrying a sickness, they will transmit it to 2 people. If an R0 is 10, that means that the person carrying the disease will transmit it to 10 other people. If an R0 is below 1, that means that that person, that individual, will transmit to a fraction of a single person. Ergo, the disease will slowly decline, right? Insofar as coronavirus, do you hear them talk about the R0 figure? No, because what? Because it's astronomical, and you know, doesn't matter anymore. This shit is going to burn through the whole species. And this is not the first time that this has happened. In point of fact, human beings have been relentlessly attacked by viruses since the dawn of the species. Okay? And what will happen is that, you know, some people are going to live, the vast majority of people are going to survive this shit, right? but a minority will die. And this is tragic for them and for their families. I'm not minimizing that at all. But what I am saying is that, see, there is nothing to stop this. The idea of putting a vaccine, what's the point of making a vaccine? To get money. That's what it's all about. These fuckers want to make money off this disease, because of course this vaccine, it's not going to be like a one shot like with rubella or diphtheria or whatnot, where you take it once or maybe a couple of times because it's a treatment, like 3 shots for pennies and you're done. No. These fuckers, what they want to do is have it be like a once a year thing where you pay $50 a shot. That's what they want. These cocksucking faggots, these money grubbing whores, that's what they want, to make more money. Okay. And Bill Gates, what's he basically saying? He's basically saying that people will have these certificates that they've been vaccinating. What it basically means is that they will have a sales receipt that they paid him money for his vaccine. That's what they're fucking saying. That's what he is saying, rather. Okay? He's saying that only people with this certificate should be allowed to get on airplanes or go to rock concerts or the movie theaters. That's what he's fucking saying. So what he's really fucking saying is, see, your life will depend on you paying me money. That's what he's fucking saying. Fucking cocksucking faggot. God, I fucking hate that fucker. Because he's making money. He wants to make money off of this. And that's what it's all about, by the way. These cocksuckers, they only want to make money, and they refuse to tell you the truth, which is, you are going to get sick with this shit, and there's not a hell of a lot that you can do about it, okay? It'll be chance. And if you survive or not, you are more likely not to survive. Few people, relatively speaking, die of this shit. But those who die, there's going to be no solution. But these people know they want to give a vaccine to everybody. And so what will that mean? See, our children and grandchildren will need vaccines. They will be drug dependent, see? And if the drug is not around, then they die, yeah? Which will be tragic. It'll be worse then, because more people who would have died today, in the future, more people will be alive and be not immune to this disease, okay? And more people will die in the future than today. So I find it disgusting and despicable, okay? Yeah, but they just want to make money. That's the thing that I think that it is so despicable, the way it's so transparently obvious that these people want to make money. And I'm sorry for getting on this hobby horse and ranting about the shit, but I really find it horrifying. Because even if they're selling it for $10 a share, an injection rather, the whole point is just to make money off of you, man. That's fucking low. That's as low as it can get. And on top of that, it's creating a dependence on medicine that our species will forever have to carry this dependence. I think that this is bad for the species long term. See what I'm saying? Okay, rant over. Sorry about that. I mean, it's just it's the thing is that certificate that Bill Gates is talking about, man, that really chaps my ass, because it's a sales receipt. It tells other people that you paid Bill Gates your money. And because of this sales receipt, only with this sales receipt will you be able to have a fucking life. Oh, and you're telling me that this receipt will only be the certificate rather, will only be if you are vaccinated or if you have the antibodies. Yeah. But he wants to be, providing the testing kits, his tests. Yeah, it's fucking mechanism for control to keep us all as slaves to fucking Bill Gates. Bill and Melinda Gates, your future overlords. Fuck you very much. No. Fuck that. Sorry, I'm sorry. It really it touches a nerve with me, obviously, as you can tell, because I know what this fucker is thinking. I know what this fucker is thinking. It's so transparently obvious. It's a mechanism to make money and to control people, the whole fucking world. That's what the fucker is aiming for. Yeah, Microsoft wasn't good enough for him. Yeah, remember Microsoft? Remember how he would handle shit? Yeah, trying to have like total domination over a market and just destroy everybody so that he controlled everything. That's his goal with people, with health. that fucker is evil. I hope he gets it, and I hope he dies. I don't give a shit. I don't say that in public, but it's just I can smell the evil coming off that fucker. Okay, let's move on to what about the U.S. dollar? Okay, like I said last time, I don't know if it's going to be deflationary or hyperinflationary. Now, a lot of people have said that I contradicted myself because I was saying that this is going to be a 5-year to 10-year depression, but that at the end of this lockdown there'll be like an economic boom. Well, from my point of view, there's no contradiction at all, because if you look at the first Great Depression, right? We look at it like this period of time, that the whole period of time, the whole decade was horrible, but that's not actually accurate. If you look into it, there were up and down periods, okay, where things were shit, and then when things perked up, okay, and went through cycles. It never really got back on top, but those periods of relative prosperity, yeah, they were relatively good compared, especially to the doldrums of before. You see what I'm saying? So I understand that it seemed as if I was contradicting myself. I'm not. What I'm saying is that, see, you got to look at economic history of the first Great Depression to understand this Great Depression 2.0, and understand that there will be doldrums and then there will be peaks within the shittiness of the whole period. Okay. Now, one thing I got to make clear, by the way, that I haven't made clear before, is that, see, the markets, they're never going to recover. We're never going to see 30,000 in the Dow Jones ever again, okay, or not even close. And you got to keep that. You got to forget about that. The old life is gone. It's gone for good, and never coming back. And the way people invest, the way people manage their money and whatnot, that ain't never coming back. Okay, simple as that. Okay. Okay, so going back to deflation, hyperinflation. At this time, we don't know. Right now, everything is arrayed for deflation, radical deflation. And we're seeing it in the price of the dollar versus other currencies. The dollar is just going up and up and up against every major currency, right? And the prices of things are going down. Oil, gasoline. How much is gasoline right now? Chump change, right? The price of oil per barrel. Yeah, like I said before, if you tell me in a month's time it's at $10 a barrel, I would not be surprised. Okay. And real estate prices, they're going to keep on going down, as sellers start competing with one another for price discounts on their properties, until all of a sudden they're going to be selling it for peanuts. It's going to be absurd. Okay. So at this time, it's clear that we're going to be suffering for dollar deflation. But as this goes into months and then years, will it hyperinflate? It seems so. But one thing I have to emphasize, see, when the dollar starts to hyperinflate, you'll see the signs, okay, if you're paying attention. Because like this disease, hyperinflation is sort of like it starts little and then grows exponentially, okay? Hyperinflation is the exact same thing. So when you start to see the little signs that the dollar is hyperinflating, then then it's time to go, okay? And what will be the signs that it's hyperinflating? Commodity prices. That's the easy one. Just look at commodity prices. If they start shooting the moon and there's no real reason for it, then okay? Especially with this collapse in demand, if any commodity, agricultural, industrial, but especially agricultural, I would say, if the agricultural commodities start shooting the moon insofar as prices are concerned, then hyperinflation is the way. Yeah. So pay attention to wheat futures. That's where you have to keep your eye on. You want to be looking at agricultural futures, wheat in particular, because wheat is a staple for bread, of course. And if the prices are within a range, within a historical band, then don't worry about it. Then, deflation is going to continue. But when it starts to crop up, when it starts to go up, and it's not a clear reason for it, okay? I'm thinking, hang on. Well, actually, now that I think about it, if the price of wheat starts to go up for no clear reason, that's, starts of hyperinflation. That's when you get out of Dodge, you get out of the dollar. Yeah, that's what I am going to do, okay? If there is an event that causes wheat to go up, say that there's a failed harvest, say, of wheat or corn or whatever, okay, agricultural, food supply, and there is a spike in a price Notice if the spike in that commodity price, say it's corn, say that there's a failed crop harvest, just for the sake of argument. And corn, of course, spikes up in price because if there's a failed harvest, there's less supply, therefore the price goes up. So there's a spike in corn prices. If the other agriculturals don't spike in sympathy, a spike as radically as corn, right? Okay, because they will spike in sympathy, that's normal, because people will say that, oh, if they're not buying corn, then they're going to buy the other staples, and so those other staples will go up in price because there'll be more demand for those staples, right? But and so those prices will also perk up, but not as much as corn in this hypothetical. But if the others spike up as much percentage-wise as corn does, then you know. You see what I'm saying? You got to keep an eye on shit, okay? And the things that right now are actually price sensitive to the upside are agriculturals. Because think about it. What are people buying right now? Are they buying oil? No, they're not. Are they buying cars? No, they're not. Are they buying real estate? No, they're not. Are they buying food? Fucking A, they need food. So that's the only thing that right now is price sensitive. Focus on that. And ignore the noise of all the money that the Fed is dumping into the markets. Because that's not really inflation. That's just maintaining asset prices up, okay? Inflation, you're gonna see it right there in something as trivial and quotidian as corn and wheat prices, corn and wheat futures. Look at that, okay? Okay, next point. Will the dollar end the reserve currency status? Not really, okay? A lot of people are talking about this like MMT guys, they're bumfuck morons. The dollar isn't gonna end the reserve currency status because the price of oil is still traded in dollars. Excuse me, oil is principally traded in dollars, and the rest of the world is pretty much agreed to this. And so it's going to maintain as a reserve currency, okay? And anyway, whether it's a reserve currency or not is not particularly important right now, okay? I'm bringing this up because a lot of people have been talking about this in blogs and shit, financial blogs. I don't understand this notion. They all freak out about that shit as if it mattered. It doesn't, okay? But anyway, oops, oop, oh, what happened? Oh man, come on. It's like you're seeing the you know, the wizard behind the behind the curtain. There we go. There, much better, much better. Okay, sorry about that. Let me continue here on my outline. Okay, the future. What about China? Yeah, what about China? The little Chinamen out there in Beijing, Peking when I was growing up, but political correctness and all that. Okay, I think that there's going to be a war with China at some point. Yeah, I think it's going to be a war for two reasons. One, understandable, and the other, despicable. A lot of people are blaming China for this whole shit, and they should. Okay, China knew what was going on way back when they could have, the rest of the world could have actually done something to stop this or prevent this. Okay, but they didn't, and so here we are. Okay, now on top of that, the Chinese are going on this humanitarian offensive, and it's blowing up in their face. They are sending masks to other countries, and the masks are used. They're sending ventilators to people, and the ventilators don't work. You know, they're sending test kits, you know, and the test kits don't work. And people are like, fuck these fucking Chinese, man. Fuck them. And so there's going to be this issue of revenge, basically. Okay, and so a lot of people are going to be talking about war with China as revenge for putting us into the ditch, right? That is understandable. It's certainly not noble, but it's understandable because people, you know, they want to lash out when they feel that they have been injured. But the problem is really that there's a second group that is far more dangerous. And this is the little group around Paul Krugman and those fucking Keynesian economists. You see, these fucksticks, they are under the delusion that the only thing that got the United States and the global economy out of the Depression was World War II. That the demand created by World War II for war material, led to the US economy restarting and really growing. And so these fuckers, since at least 2010s, when I've been following them, have been lobbying for a war. Yeah, you heard right. these fuckers, Paul Krugman most especially, has been lobbying for a war since at least 2010. I can point to articles specifically where he's been saying he is very clever about how he argues. He throws the stone but hides his hand. See, because he basically argues that World War II saved the American economy from the Depression, and he structures his argument in such a way that you, as the reader, inevitably bring the inference that another big war would save the American economy again. He does this consistently. He's an evil fuck, okay? Because that's his goal. Before, he was talking about a war with Iran, okay? But now with China, yeah, they'll just change the enemy and settle on China. And yeah, they'll be clamoring, lobbying for a war with China so that they can make more money. Yeah. Then they'll claim that it's to restart the economy and shit like that. Yeah. There's one big difference, of course. See, going to war with the Nazis, yeah, you had tanks and battleships and crap like that, right? But now we got nukes and we've got intercontinental ballistic missiles. The Chinese certainly have some, a bunch of them, in fact. Okay. They can put one of those ICBMs right on top of the Washington Monument. No problem. Okay. And that ICBM, that intercontinental ballistic missile, will have, you know, a dozen warheads independently targeted, a couple to hit Washington, a couple to hit New York, a couple to hit Boston. I mean, yeah, Boston. Yeah, yeah, they can do that easily. Okay. Going to war with the Chinese, it's not going to be a fucking walk in the park. It'll be a fucking disaster. But you watch. Yeah, you watch. In 6 months, they're going to start talking about this shit, seriously talking about it. There's going to be a whole roar for war. And you know what the first sign is going to be that this is going to happen? The first sign that the US starts some military exercise, some naval exercise with Taiwan. That's when you know it's coming. That's when you know that these fuckers have made up their minds that they want to go to war. In that case, if I were you, I'd get away from any major city. Because what the Chinese will do is they'll nuke a city. They don't give a fuck. Yeah. They do not give a fuck. Remember, in my own case, I've from 2 different sources, I've gained the information that the Chinese probably lost somewhere between 12 and 18 million people over this thing. Okay. For those of you joining in late, I'll tell you. See, back in 2015 and 16, I worked on a solar energy project. And this solar energy project was sold to the Chinese for a boatload of cash. I did very well, thank you very much. But I wound up having a few Chinese contacts. And a couple of these guys, nice fellows, sharp, smart customers. You know, after the deal was done and I'm out of the picture, you know, we kept in touch, right? And one of these fellows, we got in touch, we had a long conversation. And the word in China among the educated is that something like 12 million people died or have died so far in China. Now, you can say, well, that's just some one rando tells you that, right? How do I know it's true? And you're absolutely right. I don't know if it's true, right? But see, 4chan, you know, those magnificent autists, right? 4chan found data on China Mobile, the phone company, and they saw that the Chinese lost China Mobile rather, lost 8.7 million customers in the months of February and March, right? Or excuse me, January and February. 8.7 million customers, one company, one of the 3. And they'd never lost customers before. Every month, every single month, they'd grown their customer base. Every single month since its inception. And for the first time ever, they lost customers and lost 8.7 million customers. Okay? What the fuck does that tell you? And do keep in mind, in China, they are more phone dependent than in the West. In China, you cannot exist without a phone because you have to register your phone with the government, the phone number. They know there's no anonymous prepaid phones. There's no such thing. Every phone is attached to a person, and you cannot buy anything online without a phone. They lost 8.7 million customers, just one of those 3 major companies. What the fuck does that tell you? Okay. Some of the autists out in 4chan are saying that this would mean that roughly, between 15 and 18 million people died or stopped using cell phones and ergo stopped living in China because, like I said, you cannot exist in China without a cell phone. Okay, and so yeah, two different sources are basically telling me 8-figure deaths. Holy fucking shit. Okay, so anyway, the Chinese, we're going to go to war with them. Yeah, we start getting losses in the millions of people in the West, and yeah, there's going to be a clamor for war. I personally think that it would be catastrophic. I think it would be just catastrophic. Okay, and that's when all bets are off because it could easily go nuclear. And I know it sounds crazy. Okay, I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds tinfoil hat brigade, but think about it. The Chinese, they are fucking nuts. Okay, they're crazy. All they care about is making money and saving face. That's all they care about. Okay, they're not making any money now, so they're all about saving face. And so now they've been trying on this relentless offensive to put the blame on other people insofar as this shit is concerned. We all know where it came from, right? There's a real fucking good video about some guy. Oh man, I should have prepared that. I should have had it here handy, but I'll send it to you. When I post this video, I'll put the link to this video. This video, some guy, an American guy, Western, non-Chinese, non-ethnically Chinese, who lived in China for 10 years teaching English and shit. He learned Chinese. And he laid out a video that's non-conspiracy theory using publicly available information. And that seems to prove where this virus came from and seems to show who was patient zero. The first casualty of this thing, the first patient who died, was just some investigator who was investigating bats at this laboratory that was fucking 300 yards away from the fucking wet market in Wuhan. Okay, I'll link it when I post this video tomorrow. But anyway, there's going to be a war. I mean, that's what I think. And the signal that it's going to happen, that the war is going to indeed take place, is if the U.S. starts defending Taiwan, because Taiwan for the Chinese is just the itch that they can't stop scratching. Hong Kong, they're okay with Hong Kong and Macau as well, but Taiwan, because it's where the nationalists went, the anti-communists, right? They hate those fuckers, and so they hate Taiwan. And yeah, the U.S. siding with Taiwan is basically marking its line. It's basically saying we're gonna fuck you up, China. And that's when anything can happen, because the Chinese, like I said, they care about their money and they care about saving face. God knows what they'll do. Okay, so that's my real concern. And there will be a large cabal of people who will be in favor of this because they think it will help the economy of the West. Insane as it sounds, to go to war and kill other human beings because they think that it'll help your economy, motherfucker. That's next level evil shit as far as I'm concerned. But you got everything in this world. So anyway, let's move on to the next issues. What about social life insofar as the man-woman thing and feminism and toxic masculinity and so forth? Well, we're already starting to see the effects, right? I mean, a lot of women who used to be all, you go girl and girl power and all that shit, now they're making eyes at the betas, the beta providers who are steady and know what the fuck they're doing. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to see more of that, okay? And see, look, I spent a lot of time in Ukraine, as you guys know, right? In Ukraine, the government is shit, and the government can't provide anybody with anything, okay? And so what happens? Well, the women, they're fucking feminists all get out. They always dress up to the nines, always. You never see a woman who is overweight in Ukraine. They're all slim, yeah? They've got plenty of food, and they're not poor in so far as food resources. And they got McDonald's and Pizza Hut and all the same shit that they got, in the UK or the US or Australia or wherever. They got all that same crap, but they don't eat it. They stay in shape deliberately, and they look good when they go out. They always dress up nice when they go out. They always wear makeup and have their hair combed nicely. Always, no exception. Yeah. Why? because there's no daddy government to save them. See? They have to get a man. Yeah, it's as simple as that. In the West, you have all these social structures and whatnot that give all the support to women, right? You know, institutional support. There's none of that in a poor country like Ukraine. So what does a woman wind up doing? She winds up looking for a dependable man. Yeah. And she hitches her wagon to a dependable man. That's what she does. And she doesn't wait around for a big daddy government to save her, because big daddy government in Ukraine is never going to do that. The same with Belarus, the same with all the poor Eastern European countries. That's why Eastern European women look good. And you go to Asia, to the poor countries in Asia, same fucking thing. The women look good. They take care of themselves. Why? Because they're trying to attract a man. That's why. Because at some reptilian brain level, they realize that they need a man to get ahead in the world. And so they value a guy who might not be like pretty boy handsome and might not be that socially adept, but is dependable, is well off, treats them right. Fuck yeah. They look at him like he's made of gold, for crying out loud. Because to them, he is. He can provide them with a future. Now, the United States and Western Europe and the Western economies, Oceania and whatnot, see, if the economies go tits up, well, they have gone tits up, but they really go tits up, right? You're going to see more and more of this shit. Women are just going to start looking better. Also, something else that's going to happen, as more obese people start to die from this thing, because they are going to drop like flies, everybody's going to have an incentive to get into shape, especially the women. And they're going to say that, oh no, healthy at any weight is not true. We have to get in shape. And they are going to work their asses off to get in shape. Yeah. And they're going to explain it away as if it's a health thing against the coronavirus, but it's not. It's to get men's attention. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what's going on. And feminism and toxic masculinity. Oh, they're going to love the toxic masculinity when, you know, the shit's getting heavy and everybody's fucking desperate. And there's that one toxic masculine guy who's got his shit organized. Yeah. He's not going to be toxic anymore. On the contrary. Yeah. Yeah. That'll probably happen. Well, we're already starting to see it. Okay. Anecdotally here and there, but we'll see it's more widespread. And all this feminism talk and all this bullshit, it's going to go out the fucking window. Yeah. And by the way, this whole thing about transsexuals and all that shit is also going to go out the window. As people suffer more, they're going to have less patience for bullshit. See, that's human nature. You know, we put up with all kinds of bullshit when we're doing well. Yeah, because we're like, okay, this guy's giving me bullshit about trannies and whatever the fuck, but I'm doing okay. I can put up with it. I'll just ignore it, right? But when people are suffering, when things are tits up, they got no patience for that shit. They'll tell them, shut the fuck up. I got bigger problems than whether you were born with a dick and think that you should get a vagina. Fuck off, crazy person. That's what they say, which is what they should say. It's a sensible approach, but you know, people only start getting serious about shit when shit gets serious. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. So you know, you got to keep in mind that this crisis is going to be great for guys and shit for feminism and all the garbage that we've been, you know, following for so long, because all that garbage is the product of a rich society. It's as simple as that. Only in a rich society can people indulge in this insanity. Okay? You got to see it in those terms. Yeah. Now, finally, I want to make something clear. See, nobody knows the future, and everything and anything that I might have said in this webinar about the future, it's speculation, you know, it's spitballing, it's bullshit. Take it with not a grain of salt, a boulder of salt, for crying out loud. I could be, and probably am, completely wrong about a whole bunch of shit. When I throw this shit out at you, it's not with the idea of me being this oracle who's always right. Don't think of it in those terms at all. Think of it in the sense that I am throwing this shit out there so that you think about this shit. And I encourage you to disagree with me, so long as it's reasonable and logical, and you have like logical steps that lead you to disagree with me, okay? Because that means that you're fucking thinking, yeah? Because see, nobody knows the future. Nobody knows the future. We can speculate about the future. And of course, I'm terribly interested in the future because that's where I'm going to be living in. You know what I'm saying? So of course I want to know it and try to figure it out and suss it out and think this and think that. And I'm telling you, but whatever I tell you, take it, like I said, with a boulder of salt on the one hand. Think of it as a point of departure for you to come to your own conclusions. If you agree with me, that's great, but agree with me because you see the reasons that have led me to a particular conclusion and say, yes, those are good reasons, and I see your logic and I agree with your logic. That's good. But if you say, oh yeah, you know, CRP said this shit, so it's true, then I'd like to smack you upside the fucking head and say, think, motherfucker. You see what I'm saying? I much prefer you to disagree because you have strong ideas and a strong logical argument to disagree with me than to agree with me just because, you know, you think I'm a great guy. Okay? Don't fall into that trap with anybody. Okay? Not just me. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So the smart thing now is to just be patient, to be chill, to just wait for the future to come. Because in a realistic sense, there is absolutely nothing that we can do that will change what's going to happen. There are too many forces at play. Too much is going on. Nobody has any fucking idea. And anybody who starts saying that it's all part of some New World Order plan, he's just smoking something very powerful. I mean, it's not pot. He's smoking PCP, for crying out loud. Because it's not the New World Order who's doing this shit. They are as freaked out as anybody about this shit, okay? Nobody knows what's going on. And so you just have to wait and see what the future brings. Okay? Okay. So there's the end of my presentation. And so here I'm going to start talking to you guys and just taking questions while I make myself a cup of coffee. So hang on a second while I do something real quick. Let me just hang on. I can't actually talk and do this at the same time. So hang on. There we go. There we go. Ah, black gold. Yes. Arabica coffee. Thank the genius who invented this, you know. Okay. So guys, here we are. Whoa, 72 attendees. That's really cool. So I just lowered everybody's hand and oh yeah. Somebody said that it was a good idea for me to look at the questions and have you guys, if you have questions, I'll go over the questions, and if I find a good question, I'll call on that on the person who asked that question. So why don't you, in the questions area, put down the questions that you want to have me answer, and I'll be happy to do so. Deadpool. Here, let me get to Deadpool. Deadpool, where are you? Yes, here you are. Hey, Deadpool, what's up?
Hey, you can hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. How you going? How's it going?
Good, good. How's everything?
Oh, riding out the apocalypse, man. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
it's good. It's torture because I see less freedom. I can't do things I want to enjoy. I hate it. It's
Yeah,
torture.
yeah. Well, like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, you know, focus on doing the things that you've always wanted to do. Get in shape, learn something that you want to, like a language or a musical instrument, read, and plan for the future. Yeah, and keep your eyes open. But yeah, GL, what did I put it there? It's right there on the thing. GLRP, get fit, learn, read, and plan. Yeah. So anyway, what's your question? I read your question here, but I want you to ask it.
Okay, so you tell us just wait and see what happens. But I was reading a book. That says they suggest to invest in the to think as a long-term investor and do dollar cost averaging and being consistent.
Okay,
So like,
you throw that out the window. Throw that out the window.
really?
Okay. Yes, because any investment rule at this time means absolutely zero, because we are in a time. This is unprecedented. Okay, this is beyond anything. No book has planned for this shit. Okay, so no, forget it. Any investment strategy now, it's crazy. Okay, because there's no predictability, because all those investment strategies are based on predictability, that the markets will behave into the future more or less as they have behaved in the past. But this is not the case right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So you got to keep the idea of having an investment strategy now, that's insane, okay? Because you are going to get your face ripped off. Simple as that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to be so blunt, Deadpool. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I hope that you don't take it this way. Hello, you there?
Oh no, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I was doing my reading and read so many some finance books and trying to get different opinions, and it seems the best way. I think it's it's really confusing because so many opinions. There's this person says this opinion, this person says that opinion. It's like hard to decide how to make a decision because like it's just so many opinions. Like you can't know what is the truth. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, I understand you completely. I understand. So I'm here to tell you, nobody knows. Anybody who claims to know, he's lying. Okay? And anybody who claims that his strategy, his thing or whatever is the magic bullet, he's lying. Because this is unprecedented. There's no rule book for this period that we're living in. Okay? It's as simple as that. And most investment books, they have a strategy that in this current environment just is not applicable. So forget about it. You gotta pay attention to yourself and not how can I put this? See, you have to understand when things are beyond your control, and as an investor, you have to realize that if you do not understand where things are going, then don't play the game. It's as simple as that. See, like for instance, in my own case, I've been thinking a great deal about the puts that I put out back in early February, right? And I thought that I'd get a little bit of money, and I got a whole boatload of it. But it wasn't because I was smart, okay? It was because I got lucky. Because I thought to myself, this coronavirus hits Wuhan, which was like Pittsburgh back in the day, you know, an industrial city. So there's going to be a whole supply chain interruption. The Chinese announced that they closed down Foxconn and Johnson & Johnson's factory in China, right, because of the coronavirus. So I figured there's going to be a supply chain interruption, and that will hit eventually in the spring, I thought. And in point of fact, I remember when I was putting my bets down, I was thinking to myself, man, May, do you think maybe it'll be in June even, you know, but I figured, oh, May, you know, okay. And what happened? Well, it happened a lot faster and it was a lot bigger. And so I made a shitload more profit, but it was luck, okay? But I knew what I was doing in the sense that I had a clear objective because I was thinking logically towards how the money would be made. Now, today, April 5th, I have no fucking idea. Nobody does, okay? And we can say, oh, you know, it might go this way or that way, but yeah, but nobody knows. So don't get locked in. And if you don't know where to put your chips, don't put your fucking chips on the table. Just don't, like, you're sitting at the roulette table. Think of it in these terms, right? And what, you just randomly put your chips on the table and see what happens? No, you want to put your chips where it makes sense. And at this time, nothing makes sense. Ergo, don't put your chips on the table. Don't be dumb. That's my suggestion. I hope this helps out.
So basically, just the best option is just to keep in cash and see what happens. And I guess use the cash to invest in ourselves, in our education, or, you know, as they say.
Yeah, but don't go. There was some fucking tweet of some asshole saying that everybody should go to graduate school. Fuck that. That's absurd.
Oh, no.
See? Universities are freaking out. And by the way, this is true. The universities are waiving GRE requirements for a whole bunch of degrees because they're trying to encourage students to pay their outrageous tuition fees, but have like online courses, right? To keep themselves financially afloat, you know? It's a money suck. I mean, it proves again that the higher education system in the West is just despicable, okay? But that's what's going on. You know, so no, when I say invest in yourself, I mean like you read, but don't pay somebody else to give you some accreditation, because that accreditation isn't going to be worth it. You know, you learn shit, you learn a language or an instrument, you read books, you think for yourself, you know. but hoard your cash. At this time, the smartest thing to do is to hoard cash and have as much cash on hand, because God knows what's going to happen later. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Coach.
No, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you so much, Deadpool, for being on. I appreciate it. Okay, let's go to another question. Wait a second. Sorry, hang on a second, guys. Sorry to I'm a tech boomer here. Roberto Flores has a really interesting point, and I want him to share it with everybody. Roberto, are you there? Hello. Hello, my man. Hello, Roberto. Okay, I'll leave him unmuted. Maybe he'll like plug in his mic or something. So I'll read his question because it's a really good question. Roberto asks, I know this sounds weird, but I will argue that the US dollar is not inflating or deflating. It will remain the same. Ah, there's Roberto. How's it going? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's up?
Fuck.
You okay?
I don't. Sorry. Yeah. Hold on. Let me just lower your volume and let me speak. So I sound perfect.
You sound a little wavy, but go ahead. What's your question? I mean, I read it to people, but I want you to say it.
It's not. I really argue that the U.S. dollar, in terms of purchasing power, will be the same. Simply because that the Fed is buying up, it's holding prices of stocks and other
assets. Yeah.
Yeah. And
your sound is really
what's
bad.
What's stopping them?
Yeah. What's stopping them?
My connection. What's stopping them from purchasing price at the bottom and protecting the dollar? Like, why not purchase, for example, Chase at $10 at the very bottom, right? And then later on cashing out.
No, I see your point. I see your point. It's a good point. Yeah, I'm gonna have to mute you, man, because you're like really sound kind of. I don't quite understand what you're saying. But I think I get what you're saying. You're saying that the Fed will price support all assets. Yes, I agree that they will price support financial assets, right? But real estate assets, I don't think that they're not gonna be able to. They might price support mortgage-backed securities for the same reasons I mentioned previously, but not actual physical properties. They have, first of all, they have not much incentive to do so because financial institutions are not invested in actual real estate. I mean, they have a few real estate holdings here and there, but they're trivial in the scope of their books, right? But also there's that one problem, and the other problem is that there's so much real estate that for the Fed to go out there and buy real estate wholesale just to maintain prices, that would be crazy, and that would really be inflationary. So I don't think that that would happen. I do not think that that would happen. Look, I think that the issue of, at this time, the dollar value, the purchasing power of dollar, it's fluctuating by different asset classes. What we're having is a rebalancing of asset prices. That's what's going on. And some asset prices, all assets really, they were overinflated. And they were overinflated and they are collapsing. The only assets that were not overinflated were commodities, agriculturals and industrials. And the industrials have collapsed because of lack of industrial demand. But the agriculturals are maintaining steady, but it's the others, the financial assets that are collapsing, and the Fed is going to be focused on that. Okay, so here's a good one. Sebastian Mendo has a really good question. Hey, Sebastian, how's it going?
Hi, how's it going, Coach?
I'm doing great. And you? How's it going in Peru?
Pretty good. I actually went against your advice, and I'm actually here back in Peru.
You got back?
Yeah, in wholesale quarantine. Thing is, I did some math, and I realized I was not going to be able to survive in Canada, so I just came here, man.
Yeah, okay. Well, good luck to you, man. I hope things work out for you.
Everything's great. Yeah, good. So my question is the following. So I'm currently a student. at a Canadian university, and I'm really curious to know your to hear your opinion on like what's like going to be the future of universities after like this crisis, specifically higher like the big universities that are like very campus dependent.
That's a good question. And well, what's happening now? You tell me.
Well, so right now, so I'm only taking 3 classes, and I have 1 class left, and I'm just taking everything on online.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean you specifically. I'm just saying, you tell me what you have seen going on in campus. What's going on with this pandemic?
Well, you have humongous spaces on campus that are unused, and
Right.
because everyone's in quarantine, and
Right.
and the beauty of a campus is not there anymore, and most people are taking classes online, and professors do not know how to use Zoom, or they don't understand that like people
Yeah,
might be.
that's trivial. But are they using the dorms?
No, not really.
Of course not, because they're at home, right?
Yeah.
And are they getting more or less the same education?
Nope, not even close.
They're not actually learning the same things. What are they lacking now that they were getting before?
Basically, all education is on YouTube. Like you basically like it's like professors just upload like videos of their lectures, like kind of like you would upload like this webinar, and that's like the lecture, and you pay like 3K per class for that.
Right. So what's basically happening is that, see, all of the elements of summer camp that were involved in universities is gone. There are no more fraternities. There are no dorm rooms, right? There are no more campus parties and all that shit, right? The summer camp aspect of going to college, that's gone because people aren't in the physical university, but they're getting the same information from their professors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens if, like, say, I'm a university, a big university with a big campus, and I have to maintain this huge campus, but I have no students. How long can I maintain this big campus? Not very long now, can I? Yeah. And so what am I going to do with this huge campus? I mean, it's not an issue that I have a mortgage on the campus, of course, right? But rather I have to pay upkeep. So I have to start shutting down shit, permanently shutting down some shit, right? Because, the students aren't going to be coming back, not for a long time, right? And what's going to happen so far as students are concerned? Students are going to start to realize, I don't really need to go to college. I can just stay home, live with parents, save on room and board, and just take this shit online. And then some people are going to start thinking to themselves, I can set myself up as an online university and hire these university professors and pay them better and charge less to the students for the same accreditation and do it all online. You see where I'm going?
Interesting.
Yeah, because see, the big university, the location, the destination university, right? Well, all of a sudden, people aren't going there, and all of a sudden people realize that they can do it all online, and therefore, why don't they? And why doesn't a university hire these professors, group them together, and give courses online, and double the salary of the professor, and have the cost to the students, and still make a profit? And what happens to the big university, the destination university? It gets fucked. You see what I'm saying? And there is a glut of professors. There is a glut of professors, of people with PhDs and all kinds of different things, right? And so it would be easy for people to start doing online universities and start charging a lot less. And of course, the education departments will start giving more accreditation to these online universities because the destination universities are all closed. You see? So the destination universities, like the big campuses, University of Michigan or University of Texas or whatever, they're going to wind up being uneconomical. They're going to have to shut down, you see? And these little online universities are going to take over. And potentially the cost of university education will decrease dramatically for students, which would, of course, would be a good thing. And therefore they won't need to go into this backbreaking debt, which has been afflicted on 3 generations of students, Gen X, millennials, and Zoomers. You see what I'm saying? So this could be a huge benefit for students, and the ultimate end of these usurious loan systems and these, really despicable people in the education system that stole the future of so many young people by their incredible cost that was just to prop up the salaries of the administrators. I mean, that's my thinking. This could be a net benefit. Okay, I hope it is, quite frankly. Yeah, I hope I've answered your question.
No, no, interesting. No, it's really interesting to sort of like think of like all these possibilities just like coming together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Wait, yeah, Sebastian, thank you so much. Yeah, I hope you, by the way, are you enjoying this? This is your second time here, right?
Yes, my second time. Yeah, I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yeah. And by the way, do you like it that I laid out like the whole outline of the of the webinar at the beginning?
Yeah, I think that's really good to just kind of like prepare yourself for like all the stuff you're going to be talking about, and also like in case like we disagree, like it's good to like sort of like review and stuff.
Perfect. Good to know, because I wasn't sure whether I should like, like start with one and then reveal the next and then reveal the next, sort of like a surprise, like I don't know, like a drama or a thriller, ooh, what's he gonna talk about next? Ooh, right? But then I thought, why don't I just lay it all out, and that way everybody can see where I'm going on each issue. And I hadn't thought actually that thing that you said, that at the end you can point back and say, oh, I agree here and I disagree there. And that's another good reason to have it up. Okay, so I think I'm gonna do it like that into the future. I mean, do you prefer this, or like in the other one where I reveal slide after slide after slide?
I think maybe a combination of both of them. Like you might start with all topics at once, and then like for example go slide by slide on specific things on each topic, and then have like more like data or things like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. Yeah. And it would be
Yeah.
real easy, because what I could do is just repeat this slide and
Mhm.
like present this slide, go into a couple of slides about something else, and then return to this slide, right, to keep it there. This would be like the almost like the background slide for everything, and just like, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, thanks a lot, Sebastian. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No worries, coach. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll catch you next week.
Sounds good.
Okay, let me see. Uh, Shane Rogers, how's it going, my man? You there? Hello. There
Yep,
you are.
I'm here.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, coach. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fucking good, actually.
Good, good,
No,
good.
I'll tell you the truth, man. Like, I'm stuck here in Amsterdam. I miss my kids terribly because I see them on Skype every day,
Oh, you're
but it's
still in
not the same thing.
Amsterdam?
What?
You're still in Amsterdam? Dang.
Yeah, I can't get out. Or more correctly, I can't get back to Ukraine where my kids are, and I miss them terribly. But they closed the borders, and there's no way for me to get there. There's no flights or anything, right? And there's no possibility of going by land. There are too many borders between here in the Netherlands and there in Ukraine. And so because of that, I'm stuck here, and it's really breaking my heart, because even though I'm talking to my kids every day on the phone, on the Skype, I see them, right? And they see me, but it's not the same as being there, and I miss them terribly. I have to admit that I'm enjoying this period very much. I'm sky high because in my own personal case, things have worked out just aces. But I mean, this is financially speaking, but on a personal level, just being away from my kids really, really it really fucking sucks. What can I say? Yeah.
Yeah, you got a shovel? I'm just kidding. But I do want to get to my question here, and that's really kind of piggybacking off of your last conversation about universities. Given like the state of the universities today, with with so many campuses that are not being used, and so much debt that's getting accumulated from that, do you think like the next phase that they're gonna for this next stimulus bill, like say, quote unquote, phase 4, will be a bailout of the universities.
No, that's way down on their list of priorities. Yeah, way down on the list of priorities. There are much more
Really?
important things. Yeah. Because like you got the number one priority is right now the financial institutions and the pension funds, especially the pension funds. Yeah, they are probably freaking the fuck out over the pension funds. Okay, and so that's their number one priority: the pension funds and the financial institutions, the big financial institutions generally. Then after that will be the key industries, like Boeing, GM, Ford, Chrysler. Those are going to be up next. I mean, after the financial institutions, right?
Right.
Then probably the oil companies, because the oil company debt is going to go tits up pretty soon. And pretty soon, I'm talking about in the next month, right?
Right.
And so they're going to be focused on other shit. The university is so far down the list of priorities that, and of course, you've got the issue of the hospitals and the healthcare system
Right.
and the riots that are going to start to take place because of the insane costs of coronavirus treatment that people are just not going to want to pay. Okay, so
Yeah.
universities are going to be way down on the list of priorities. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of interesting when you kind of think about just when you look at some of the market that's going on right now. You have non-essential businesses that are just pretty much just in limbo. Some are going that are just, so there are some non-essential businesses that are just not going to come back, and it's just I just think it's very interesting how we just have we have grocery workers, delivery drivers. I mean, those are still staying open, and with this whole stimulus package going on, and when people start making money by not working, I mean, I think that puts workers in these essential businesses at an advantage to where they'll be like, okay, well, these people are making more money than me, and they're not working. Shouldn't I get a raise because I'm the one that's going out and I'm actually working?
That'll take a while to coalesce. Okay, I mean, I'm talking 3 to 6 months. I understand the sentiment, but that kind of labor unhappiness takes a while to percolate. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah. Yeah, the industries that get bailed out, as I said, were like the financials and the big industrials. That's number one. And insofar as any kind of labor shit going on, people right now are too shocked and surprised to start organizing seriously. And they don't really have any complaints, the ones who are actually working, okay? Because they are actually working. You see so many people who are unemployed, okay? So, that kind of disgruntlement, that's gonna take a while, okay? There's other shit that's gonna be more immediate. And like I said before, it's the fact that nobody's gonna start paying their bills. They're not gonna pay their rents. They're not gonna pay their utilities either. That's something else I hadn't anticipated, but we're going to start to see a lot more talk about this, that people are not paying their utilities.
Right.
And what are you going to do? Cut off electricity for people? Then there'd be riots. Then the government is going to have to say, no, you should pay your utilities, but we'll bail you out somehow. We'll slip some money to utility companies or whatever to not cut people off. Because if they cut people off from, essential services like electricity or internet or whatever, then people would start to riot. And what the government wants at this point is to keep everybody as calm as possible. That's their priority. And so anything that happens, well, we're seeing it too in so far as crime is concerned. See, the police are not prosecuting, theft and simple assault and stuff like that. And so there's going to be more crime going on. See,
Right.
yeah, but it's a disaster. But well, look, my thinking is, and I should have made this clearer in the presentation. I'm tending to think that it was a mistake to have done this, to have shut down the economy like this. I think that horrible though this disease is, and the many deaths it will bring, I think that the cost is too much. Yeah, that's my thinking at this time. Perhaps it'll change. Okay, I mean, look, I've told you guys before that I think that the number of deaths is going to be catastrophic. I can envision anything between 2.2 million and 8.8 million people dead in the United States alone. And that's horrifying. In the United States, every year 2.8 million people die. Okay, so an additional 2.2 million to 8.8 million dead in a single year. Holy cow, that's practically doubling, if not quintupling the number of dead in a year, right? But I'm questioning whether it was worth crashing the economy over this. See, and I think that in the post-mortem of this thing, I think that people will look back and probably think that it was a mistake to have done so. Yeah. Great talking to you, Shane. Let me get some other people on board. Thanks for coming back, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Coach.
Thank you. Talk to you next week, or talk to you soon. Hang on. Let me see. I'm looking at the questions. You're gonna have to forgive me. I'm a little slow here because it's a one-man operation. Okay, Alexander. Let me get to Alexander. He has a question here, and I want to hear it from the man himself. Alexander, are you there?
Hey, are you listening to me? Is it good?
Yeah, I hear you fine, man. Yeah, I called on you at the beginning, but you weren't there, man. What the hell?
No, I was there, but the microphone was not working. That's what's going on. So my question is basically, with the resource wars and all of this nonsense about between countries, do you, of course, the whole globalism and global markets are not going to be the same, but are we going back to the nationalistic industries and nationalistic countries? Of course, the swing to the right now is going to be insane. Are we going back to authoritarian regimes? Like, what's going on? What's going to happen?
That's a good question. Okay, let me mute you for a second because there's like some wind noise there. What's going on insofar as the economy? This is the end of globalization. Okay, it's as simple as that. Globalization in the sense of offshoring industries, especially essential industries. What people used to think of as essential industries in the United States, at least, was defense. Defense was never offshored because it was thought that defense industry should always be American, because that way, you know, no foreign country would have American weapon systems by the balls, which is perfectly reasonable. Yeah. But I think that what will be considered essential will grow in scope, because now we're seeing that China, for instance, had a near monopoly on drugs, on medical equipment. People are like, what the fuck were we thinking? Yeah. And so long term, I think that a lot of the tenets of globalism, especially offshoring of industry, that is going to go out the window. That will cease to be something that people want to do. And I think every country, not just the United States, but every country of the advanced economies at least, will insist on having certain industries be wholly local. And those are going to be obviously medical. That's the first one, that everybody's going to insist that every medical device, every medical supply, every drug be made on the ground at home, not dependent on overseas or some other country. Okay, that's the first one. And the others, it'll depend on each country what they consider essential. I can't at this time, I can't off the top of my head think of the other essential companies, but the other essential industries rather. But the political leadership and the populace, they will come to an agreement pretty quickly as to what are the essential industries that cannot be offshored ever. And I think that this will push on into a lot of industrial manufacturing, where people are going to say, well, you know, if we're not allowing medical stuff to be built overseas, why are we allowing like tractors and cars to be built overseas? You see what I'm saying? And I think that, see, the whole notion of comparative advantage is going to be thrown out the window because of this. Now, what's comparative advantage? Well, it's one of the cornerstones of neoliberal economic policy. Comparative advantage is the notion that an hour of labor has different prices in different places, and therefore it is advantageous to offshore certain labor so that you can free up that labor to do other things that are more productive. Let me give you a very simple example. Suppose you're a lawyer, right? And you're a lawyer and you charge $500 an hour to be a lawyer. And you also know how to repair a car. You're very good at repairing cars because you like it or whatever, okay? So you have a choice. Your car breaks down. Your car breaks down and you have a choice. You can fix it yourself and it'll take you, say, 3 hours to fix it. Or you can go to some mechanic and it'll take him 5 hours to fix it. And you'll have to pay him money, of course. What should you do? Well, if it only costs, like, say, $100 an hour to pay the mechanic 5 hours, right? To do it, it'll be $500. But you'll have those free 5 hours to charge $500 per hour to be a lawyer. So it's the comparative advantage is quite obvious. You should outsource the labor and not fix your car yourself and pay somebody else to fix it, because in the long run, you'll make more money. See? I'm grossly simplifying this, of course. It's just for the purposes of this conversation so that you understand what comparative advantage is. On a macro scale, there was the neoliberal notion that you should outsource everything because that way more workers would be in service industries, which pay more, right? But now we're seeing that that's not such a good idea. We're also seeing, of course, that there's a level of saturation insofar as the service industry is concerned. And more to the point, a lot of countries are going to feel very vulnerable having offshored essential industries after this pandemic. And so I think that there's going to be economic nationalism and an end to neoliberal globalism, economically speaking. Will this translate into political nationalism and potentially something serious, like some sort of despotic regimes, some right-wing nationalist regimes rising up? Maybe, okay? But I think also what will happen is that a lot of times that there's been so much of the talk of like, ooh, the Nazis are coming, that when the Nazis finally do come and people realize that they're not so bad and actually they're pretty good in many regards, then people will chill out and that argument will go out the window, see? So there's going to be a lot of change. What those changes are going to be, like I said, it's too early to tell. We just have to be patient. Where did you go? Oh, here, let me put you back on to just round off the conversation. So did you hear my what I said, Alexander?
Yeah. And some other question that is not really a question. I know it's all hypothetical, but the whole notion about the global markets, because now we're all running after masks and everything. And I live in Brazil, and in Brazil they produce masks. And someone told me yesterday that they know someone in Japan that is basically getting masks manufactured in Brazil. And we all know that like the United States is buying a bunch of masks at a higher price and basically stealing from let's say from other countries buying it. And how do we see that going on later on when we try to nationalize markets? Are countries just going to close their commercial borders to export shit
Yeah.
or not?
Yeah,
It's gonna be
they
weird.
will.
I mean, it's really weird.
Well, that was the state of affairs for centuries, okay? It was only in the last 40 years that this has changed. The last 40 years is nothing, see? You're a young guy, you're in your 20s?
26.
What?
I'm 26.
Yeah, you're in 26, yeah.
Hello, I'm 26.
Yeah, you're 26, yes. I'm double your age. So I remember how things used to be before, okay? This open borders, open commercial borders, this is a newfangled invention. And yeah, it ended now. And it's not coming back, okay? And the arbitrage play of, using different labor markets to make money in your home market, yeah, that's not gonna happen. That's over. That's definitely over, see? So, and there's no way that that's going back because people, the political wind has changed, and also people in the developed economies are like, holy shit, our entire industrial base has been completely hollowed out and we can't manufacture anything. They are freaking out, okay? So no, that's over. That's just not coming back. But yeah, by the way, are you enjoying the webinars?
Yeah, I'm liking it a lot. The one thing that I would like to ask for, and some people in Patreon actually asked for, is for you to post the topics
Yeah.
before the webinar, because I kind
Yes.
of came in
Yes.
blind.
Yeah. 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 I saw that, and I'm going to be doing that also. Yes. What I'm going to be doing, the idea would be this: would be like on Thursday, I post the post where I ask everybody questions, and like say on Saturday, I post what the topics will be, and that way you're absolutely right, so that people aren't like flying blind into it and just like a big surprise. Yeah, because I can understand, because sometimes you'll hear some
Well,
topics and you're like, I don't want to hear that, not interested, or this, yeah, I'm really interested in that, and I'll make the time for that. So I understand.
I got a better idea. Why don't you post it on Tuesday, asking for a topic, and then on Friday you get a poster going to ask for. Let's say you get 4 topics that you like from all the suggestions, and then you get a poster on Friday asking which one people want, and then on Saturday you just close the poster and get the topic going.
That's a really good idea. Okay, that's a really good idea. I'm gonna definitely do that. You're absolutely
Yep.
right. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I was sort of like locked into this notion of like asking on Thursday. Well, why? Yeah, you ask on Monday, Tuesday. By Friday, do a poll, like an instant 24-hour poll. And Saturday, everybody knows the winner. And
Yeah, do
then
you know the website poster?
yeah, 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 yeah. That's a good idea. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely
You're
gonna do that. But
welcome.
don't tell anybody that it was your idea, okay? It's my idea. I came up with this.
Okay,
My
it's all
big
yours.
brain.
It's all
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah, don't tell
I
anybody,
mean,
okay?
48 laws to powers, you know? One of the 48 laws to power is never tell anybody that it's other people. Oh my God, my English is so bad. My English
Yeah,
was
don't
way
worry.
better, but
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I get you're saying, yeah, but don't tell anybody. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Catch you next time.
yeah. Take credit
Thanks,
for
Anya.
everything.
Bye.
Catch you.
I have a question from Kenya. Let me find you here, Kian. Kian, there you are. Uh, hello, Kian. Are you there?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, how's it going? Greetings from Nairobi, Kenya.
Yeah, how's it going there insofar as the coronavirus?
Well, here's the thing. The Kenyan government has said we have around 200 cases, but I know for a fact it's way more. I think we have around 3 to 4,000.
How do you know that?
Because, okay, so I'm Indian Kenyan. I'm in the 1% of Kenyans. I'm part of
Hmm.
this community called the Ismaili community. We're a small subsect of Shia Islam, 15 million of us around the world. And in our community, we already have 100 to 150, and just in our community, and that hasn't been reported to the government, if
I
that
see.
makes sense.
Yes, yes, it does.
Yeah,
So you're extrapolating from your figures, and you figure that your own group of people there in Kenya are just an
yeah,
average sample of the rest of the population,
precisely,
insofar as infectability is concerned.
precisely. And there's so much lack of education here. We have a housekeeper. She told us last week she did not believe the coronavirus exists.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have like, we have just 20 minutes away from my house. We have the biggest slum in Africa. It's called Kibera. 170,000 people there just living on top of garbage.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and that's just one. We have, I think, I don't know, millions of people living in slums like that. You just Google Kibera slum, you look at
Hmm.
what it looks like. It is horrible. And those people, they go to the industrial area as well. They don't just stay there because they go to work. They go to work.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're figuring that they're going to spread it around, and the death rate is going to be catastrophic.
Oh yeah. And right now, I'm not hearing anything. Things seem to be calm. I mean, we have a curfew at night. No one's allowed to go out at night. But
Oh, since when is this curfew?
this curfew was about I think a month ago actually. I've been taking online classes at university. I'm studying at USIU, the United States
Hmm.
International University here. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, by the way, I pay around $2,000 to $2,400 per year tuition. Pretty good.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So there's that, and you know, our own community here, our Smile community, we've had of a setup. We're using community money to turn like our one of our mosques parking lot into a sort of hospital there.
Hmm.
Yeah, so there's, uh, I don't know, the shit hasn't hit the fan here yet. I'm just waiting for it to, because you know, African mobs rioting the streets, they use machetes.
Yeah, I know. Okay, they don't fuck around.
Yeah,
Okay.
and here's the thing, tribal warfare here is such a big thing. I mean, you know, in Rwanda, they had two tribes, Hutu and the Tutsi.
Yeah.
Over here in Kenya, we have over 40 tribes, and none of them like each other. I mean, English and Swahili is what everyone uses to speak to each other, but all these
Mhm.
tribes have their own languages. And during presidential elections, they don't talk about policy or, you know, economics. They talk about what tribe this guy is from.
Yeah.
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 And, you know,
Oh
I'm
God.
fearing an African mob just coming in because, you know, there's no work. And what's worse is, worst time, we're getting locusts. The farmers here, we're getting plagues of locusts just eating everything. They could not have come at a worse time.
I heard that, man. You know, when we get the rain of frogs, then I'm gonna be looking for a sweet sunny Jesus to come down.
Yeah, I
Jesus
know.
Christ.
It's crazy.
So,
I've been in my house, like I have a small cough. I don't know if I have the virus. You know, it could be just passing. There's no way for anyone to get tested here
yeah.
whatsoever. Yeah.
Yeah. I personally have been feeling under the weather, but ever so slightly under the weather since
Yeah.
the 16th of March. And
Same with me. Yeah.
I think because my daughter actually was very sick with the flu, but I mean like
Mm,
not, I mean like very sick, but not hospital sick. And she's 7 years old.
yeah.
And eventually she got over it, but it took a while. Yeah, it was like a
Mm,
nasty flu. Yeah.
yeah.
And now I'm wondering if maybe she had it and now I have it because my
Mm,
both my son and my wife also got it to a lesser
mm,
extent than my daughter.
mm.
And my own symptoms have been just occasional, you know, kind of like not really like you know that you're sick, but not like really, really sick. Mm? And
Yeah.
now the fact of the matter is, we went through, or I at least went through three big international airports: Schiphol, Warsaw, and Geneva in
Yeah.
during the early February. So if I caught it there, I would not be surprised at all. And so you know, I don't know what to expect of this thing, if I'm going to get it later or whatnot, who knows. But anyway, you had a question. It was a very good question. So let me please ask it.
Yeah. So, my question is, how will this affect the West's relationship with Russia? Will they ally themselves with China? Because I've always thought that should have been the case all along, because Russia is no longer the enemy.
So you're saying that whether the West will ally itself with Russia?
Against China and stop this, you know, bullshit propaganda against Russia.
No, I think that Vladimir Putin is a very, very clever guy. Okay,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
he is he is one of the smartest politicians ever, probably.
Mm,
I mean, you know, I mean, like you can compare that, you know, objectively, but you know, he's up there. I think that he's just going to keep his options open because he is a Russian nationalist. His goal is to repatriate all the Russians that essentially were kicked out of Russia when the Soviet Union dissolved. That's there's a very interesting series of interviews that he did with Oliver Stone.
yeah, I saw them. I saw them,
Yeah.
all four.
There are four of them. I forget the name of it, but it's just, you know, Oliver Stone. Just Google Oliver Stone and Vladimir Putin, and it comes right up on Wikipedia or whatever. They were
Yeah,
like really long, and Oliver Stone, you know, whatever you think about the guy, he is a very well prepared guy, and he asked very intelligent questions of Vladimir Putin, and he asked them over a period of months. Actually, I think it was like a couple of years, and put them together in this documentary. And from this documentary, you realize that Vladimir Putin is communicating his priorities because, you know, Oliver Stone wanted to make good entertainment, but Vladimir Putin wanted to put across what he's really thinking. And Oliver Stone is a you know, had won Best Oscar as a director twice. Okay, not many people can say the same. Okay, and
yeah,
so Vladimir Putin knew what he was doing in using Oliver Stone for these interviews, and his priority is repatriating those Russian citizens. He doesn't give a shit about the West. He just wants
Yeah.
to repatriate his own people and give them a good life. Now, is he a corrupt guy? Has he made shady deals? Probably. You know, has he made shady deals for his friends and cronies? Probably. You know, I mean, probably yes. Yeah. But is he a smart customer? Fuck yeah. Is he going to get entangled with anybody into an alliance that could possibly hurt him long term? No way. He's not going to side with the Chinese and he's not going to side with the West. But he'll always offer like a helping hand with strings attached. I'm mixing my metaphors, but you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know because I've watched those interviews and I actually do speak Russian. I've taught
Oh,
myself.
fucking, that's what everybody who's listening should do. Learn a language while you're stuck in your home doing nothing. Yeah.
I still struggle a lot with some problems. Sometimes I understand everything, sometimes nothing. But yeah, I know Putin is extremely popular, not only amongst his own people, but a lot of former Soviet places, because we have a lot of Ismailis living in Tajikistan. They all
Mhm.
love him to death. They want Putin as their leader, I tell you.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, because he seems to know what the fuck he's doing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he seems to be like a steady guy. And when he acts decisively. There's like no hesitation, no back and forth. No, no, no. When he invaded Crimea, he did it quickly, you know, cleanly, no hesitation. And because of it, I would venture to argue that there was less loss of life, you know,
Mm.
and it was just a smoother situation than with somebody who had been dithering, you know. So yeah, yeah. But look, I hope to see you in the next one because I'm really interested in what's going on in Africa.
Yeah,
By the way,
absolutely. I'll let you know what's going on here if the situation gets worse, you know. So far, people are oblivious, I think. The locals are just oblivious to what's coming.
mm, mm. Have you prepared?
I'm in my house. I was in a panic attack, and my parents had to tell me to calm down because I made them go buy water and not toilet paper, but water and just lots of
Food.
food and all this crap.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, my mom's in the insurance industry, and I think that's an industry that's actually pretty stable right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
my if I were you, I hope that you've acquired like food supply because
yeah.
your situation, if you have marauding gangs of tribesmen who want to just machete whomever crosses their path,
Oh yeah.
yeah, you want to be
I've
locked down tight.
I mean, I've been robbed by an African gang once in my own house. They tied me up, tied my parents up, broke my mom's nose once. This was like a year or two ago, and it was
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. I can just imagine, you know, that was just 5 guys. I can imagine just gangs of these people. And, you know, I live pretty well off. I'm upper class by African standards, middle class by American standards, so I can't complain, but, you know, still
Mm-hmm.
scary times.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, especially now that you can't move, you can't leave.
Yeah, and we
So
have
you
no
have to
ventilators.
deal with what?
Well, we have barely any ventilators here. I mean, they've told us that, you know, this might be the last time you get to see your loved ones if they do go to hospital, because, you know, we don't have a healthcare system here. It's shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just I hope everything works out for you,
Yeah, me
truly.
too.
And I hope to see you next week because I'd love to hear more about Africa because I'm very, very curious about what's going to happen there and
Yeah.
how when it really breaks, how the panic will unfold there. I'm just real
I've
curious.
also lived in South Africa for 5 years, by the way, and my sister's stuck there right now because she was at university.
Hmm.
So yeah,
And
so
what's she
I
saying
also know
about South Africa?
what she's saying about South Africa. Well, she's staying with family.
No, 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 I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to say, what is she saying about South Africa? What is she telling you? How things are in South Africa?
She says everyone's on lockdown. South Africa's on complete lockdown.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
about it. And funnily enough, I trust the Kenyan government a little more than the South African government, which is not saying much because Kenya is less developed, but it's on an upward spiral. South Africa is
Hmm.
more developed, but it's on a downward spiral because they still have this chip on their shoulder about apartheid, and it's ugly.
Yeah, yeah, I know. The South Africans, they are just like Zimbabwe.
Oh
They
yeah,
they kicked out the whites. They had this great thing going for them, and they
Mhm.
fucked it up. And that seems to be what's going on with South Africa. But correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
Oh no, well, just take for example, I go to a restaurant here in Kenya. The restaurant staff are so professional, so polite. In South Africa, it's like they're rude. The moment they come to you, they're like, "Remember, give me a tip. I want my damn tip." And it's like, geez, you know, they feel like they don't want to serve you. They feel like they don't want to do anything to have anything to do with you.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Even in school, like, you know, if you're on a sports team, you have to have a certain amount of black people on the team or you're disqualified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Reverse apartheid.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Oh man. Kian, great talking to you. Let's talk
Yeah.
again next week. Tell me more. I
Yes,
think
yes.
that everybody's real curious about Africa. So thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much.
Thanks. I'll be
Take
here.
it easy. Hey, I wanted to talk to Steve Simon here. He had a great question. And so, Steve, you there?
Hello.
Hey, Steve, how's it going?
Hi, Coach. Good to talk to you for the first time.
It's great talking to you as well. Where are you at? What city?
Well, I'm currently in Hong Kong, stuck in Hong Kong, pretty much. Can't
Oh,
go
wow.
anywhere.
Wow. It must be like 3 in the morning there.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus.
More or less.
Thank you so much for staying up to listen, man.
Yeah, first of all, I really have to say thank you for all the content that you've been putting through for the last I think I'm starting following your YouTube channel like for the last 2 years, more or less. But then I would say your content did change a lot on making many decisions through my life, especially during the last 2 years. So really, really impressive stuff. And now I've got a kid, like 2 years old, and better position of my life, and which is really helpful. The first of all, and yeah.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for your kind words. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that my stupid videos have like helped you out. Really, it's very humbling. And I
For
thank you.
young men, like it's really important, like to, because there's just too much. Like, well, I mean, I'm a reader myself, but still there's a lot you can just learn, like for like between 20 to 30, because now I'm around 30 years old, but still you just you blind pretty much, and you don't see the world before someone lead your way, in a way, to shine a light for eternal, like you always said, and really, really inspiring stuff.
Thank you, man. So hit me with your question. I mean, I'm seeing it here, but I want you to tell people about it. What's your question?
Yeah. So myself, well, for myself, I'm like a digital builder myself. So I'm a designer, I'm a developer. So I have the ability to build stuff, like build system, build software, build website or platform, and you can see like I would say for the last couple of months, like every business suddenly realized like, oh, they need to go online, they need the web, they need the internet, and you can see that a lot more people are depending on the internet now, like more than ever, I would say, and they started to realize the important, and they need the web. Pretty much, there's no other option. Like for example, I got a couple of friends that like a gym trainer. They couldn't conduct the class anymore. He has to go online. He has to go do live class, or even asking me to put up a web shop to sell the content, to get the orders. And there are some friends of mine at retail. Again, they just feel like, oh my goodness, they need to get money for online, or otherwise they're out of business. But I started to think like, what is going to happen, and is this only temporary, like the trend going online, going internet, or is this going to be something that's like maybe there's something bigger coming, like in the next maybe a year or 2 or 3 years, I don't know. But do you think this is only like a temporary thing? People, once things get normal again, in September or October, like you predict, with things get people just move away from the internet, go back on the street again, and just forget about the web, forget about the online tutor, go back to school as normal? Or do you think the web will be having like a more important position to our, like culture, globally speaking, like people will be like, they need the web. And do you think there will be something bigger that's going to happen on the web? Like, because web, again, it's another world, that's what I want to hear. I haven't heard of you talking about, a lot on this kind of areas. I'd like to hear your opinion.
Sure. Yeah. So let me think. I'll tell you what I think. I think that this change, because of this, that everybody's working online, this is permanent. Okay, let me mute you for a second because there's a little bit of like a clipping noise in the back that is interrupting. This is permanent, and what's going to happen is that, see, a lot of companies are working with their workers online because they told them all, work from home. And so what's going to happen is that companies are going to realize, hey, we used to have this office space that had individual cubicles, say, for 50 people, say. But now everybody's working at home, and the same productivity is, people are delivering their work from home. And we don't need this big office with 50 cubicles. Or in other words, what's going to happen is that companies are going to realize that they can outsource their office space to their employees' home. You see what I mean? They'll be able to save that money and not spend it on office space. Now, this has very interesting implications insofar as retail office space, real estate, but also on a social level, of course. What will happen is that people will start to realize that they don't need to be there at the company. They don't need to move to the city where the company is because of the online world. Because what will happen is a lot of companies will realize that they can outsource, or not outsource, rather, they can have their employees working remotely. But these remote employees, they can be anywhere. And the remote employee will only have to go to the office periodically every week or two, maybe, for some meeting or some specific reason that he has to gather with a bunch of other people. Gather in a way that can't be done online, because a lot of people are doing these virtual online meetings, like us right now. We have we had 64 people, 65 with myself. We're all hanging out here talking, and with no video, but there are a lot of applications that have video conferencing and whatnot. And so, that's the future. That's the future, and this has just accelerated that future. And so companies are going to realize that they can save a lot of money, and people are going to realize that because of this kind of online work, they can move to cheaper cities. They can move to small towns. They can move wherever they want to, so long as they're relatively close to their offices, because you have to assume that periodically they have to meet at their office. When I say periodically, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, or maybe even just once a month. Think about it. If you have to go to work every day, then you don't want to live in the United States where the distances are big and the commute times are long. You don't want to live more than, say, 50 miles away from your work at most, right? But if you have to go only once a week, well, then you're willing to go, like, I don't know, 100 miles away. And if you only have to go once every month, you're willing to live, how far away are you willing to live? 200 miles? Yeah. Maybe you drive all afternoon, sleep at a motel, and then next morning show up the company for whatever, and then drive back the next day. Yeah, something like that. And it would be cheaper for you to live far away because it'll be in a cheaper area with just as nice a house. I mean, you see where I'm going here. Commuting people will be spread out because there won't be that need to live right by the office. Because if you think about it, this concentration of workers near where they work, that started with the Industrial Revolution, because the factories drew workers from the countryside to the city or the town where the factory was. And the city or the town, if it was a small town, it became a bedroom town for that factory. And if it was a city, the people started living there, and because there was a labor pool there, then other factories started moving to that city as well to take advantage of that labor pool. And that's how you have this concentration of cities. But if you can do it all online, or a lot of it online, then people will spread out. They'll spread out more, and this will potentially revitalize certain small towns. Not every small town, and who knows which small town gets revitalized. I mean, I'm saying this not as an opportunity to invest, but rather just, you know, it'll happen to some towns and not others, and the reasons, who knows why. It'll be a crapshoot, okay? So the idea of investing would be ridiculous, but I'm not interested in that insofar as this observation is concerned. I'm interested in how people will think. If things were to go back to normal, like in September, as I think at this time and hope, quite frankly, I think that this would stay. This notion of doing stuff online and not actually having to go to work. And a lot of companies would agree with that because they can save money. They can save a lot of money. And say they would tell their workers, stay at home, you're perfectly fine, you know? Yeah, that's what I think. Where did you go? Hey, oh, there you are, Steve. So let me unmute you. So Steve, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting point of view because I, you know, like the company that I'm working with, we've been contacted by a couple of property maintaining companies, you know, like where like huge corporation managing like over 1,000 of corporation space in Hong Kong or globally speaking, and they were like asking us like, oh, is there like a tool that could help them to like a virtual showroom, you know, where they can show. I think they really to get new renter or you know buyers, you know, to get the office space because you can see it's really difficult to meet the clients. They were asking us to build tools to do that. But yeah, I mean, I wonder what is the motivation really, you know, at that point.
Yeah, well, yeah. But listen, Steve, it's great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming over, and I hope to see you next week too. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, thank you, Coach.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Let me see. Mauritian Struggle has a question. Now, full disclosure, Mauritian is Mauritian is a bastard. He's just some guy I know. Nobody likes him. You know, he's just like this awful guy. Yeah. Hey, how's it going, brother?
Yeah. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, I hear you fine. What's up?
Great. Yeah, not much. Just enjoying the lockdown, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, you had a great question. Why don't you tell it to the audience?
Okay, so I know you've gone to some extent in other videos on your channel talking about reading particular literature, so Fyodor Dostoevsky and the like, War and Peace and things like that. But I'd be very interested to hear what other things you'd recommend, since if we're going to be stuck for 4 months in lockdown, surely we can get through plenty of books. You can get through, what, 16 books in that time if you do one a week?
Easily. Yeah, I mean, like my thinking is that if you're reading like say 50 pages a day, which is what I do, right? I read every day 50 pages. That's my goal. Sometimes I mean, most of the times I make it. Sometimes I don't, and I feel very guilty, but 50 pages a day is the goal. And on days off, I do 50 pages in the morning and 50 in the evening. At that pace, you can get through a lot of books, okay? Think about it. Most books are between 250 and 350 pages. So if you're reading at a pace of 50 pages a day, you know, you're going to do a book a week, okay? If we're going to be locked down for 5 months, April, May, June, July, August, as I currently anticipate, 5 months, that's, you know, 150 days, that's 22 weeks or so. 22 weeks, 22 books, no problem. Yeah. Well, my thinking is that you should read, you should go with the 19th century classics insofar as novels are concerned, okay? All the big novels before Madame Bovary, because my thinking is that Madame Bovary was the before and after. Before Madame Bovary, books were about people, and Madame Bovary is about people, but after that, they just went to shit. And the 20th century novels are just dumb. They're just respectively just a bunch of bullshit. But the other kind of literature that I would read is nonfiction. And I have to say that there is so much good nonfiction that explains stuff. For instance, I'm currently reading a book called Dinosaurs Rediscovered. Now, I actually bought this book back in September for my son. because I bought the hardcover. And the reason I bought it was just because it had a lot of nice pictures in it, right? A nice diagrams of dinosaurs and whatnot. And it was kind of like scientific. And I flipped through it and I thought, he'll probably like this. He's 5 years old. And I figure I'll get it and, I'll read it to him and he'll like enjoy the pictures and whatnot. And the thing that happened to me is that I did indeed buy it and I showed it to him and he loved it. And it's his favorite book because he loves the pictures. But he just didn't let me read it. And what happened at some point is that I started reading it and got really fascinated by the topic. So I wound up buying it myself. And long story short, it's a book that I'm currently reading. It's fascinating. It tells about the state of scientific discoveries and scientific theories about dinosaurs. And it's really interesting. And the thing is, see, there are a whole host of books like that about a whole host of different topics, because nonfiction today is extremely well written, and it can teach you a lot of information about things you don't know. Now, why does it matter to learn things that you don't know? But let me adjust the question. Why is it important to learn about things that are outside your wheelhouse, things that are just peripheral to your interest, maybe even? Because all that additional information, it gives you little insights that you can potentially apply to the problems that you have at hand. There's like a lot of discussions, for instance, in this book, Dinosaurs Rediscovered, which I highly recommend, that talk about how certain scientific discoveries were made. And because of that, you see him, the author, whose name slips my mind right now, you see him explaining how the scientists arrived at a certain logic to solve a particular problem. And you start to realize that that same logic, you can take that formula of logic and apply it to your own problems and solve them. You see what I'm saying? And so a lot of times my thinking is, it's not so much that, this book will teach you something specifically. No. It's more general in the sense of like watching how other people solve a problem can give you like a little example that you can potentially apply to your own problems, no matter how different they might be, you see? Now, I love Dostoevsky because he presents so many different people, different characters that are real, that they are like people that you've actually met. I mean, I know that you've read Brothers Karamazov, right? And the character of Alyosha, Ivan, they're like a human type, and you feel to yourself, yes, I know that guy. I've met that guy who's really arrogant because he's such a big brain. I've met that guy lots of times. Sometimes I was that guy. You see what I'm saying? And so the issue of reading is not that you're just looking at words on a page. It's not that you're learning the story. It's rather you're gaining little human insights, because the authors of these books, they are writing down what they have seen. And what they have seen is human. And humans are limited creatures, and we tend to repeat ourselves. And so when you see something in one context, like a novel by Dostoevsky, or how a scientist discovered that dinosaurs were feathered, right? Or how they discovered that the feathers were of a certain color and not a different kind of color, and how they are positive it's because of this, and they explain the reasons. You start to learn things about human beings that you can apply in your own life. You see why it's so important? It's not that you're just reading to read, it's that you're reading to learn about people because you're a person. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd add on to that actually, and I suppose this is kind of in character. One of the best ways to, I think what you're describing here is something called types or typology. So there are certain types. There are types that repeat throughout history, and one of the most effective ways of learning these types is to go through the ancient religious texts, particularly the scriptures. So if you're able to sit through, like there are some books that are easier than others, but if you're able to sit through the Old and New Testaments, you'll have a very, very good idea of how human beings generally work.
Yep. Yes, you will. Yeah, because you don't have to believe, you don't have to be a believer to read the Bible and recognize that it's talking about people, and people that are the same, that are recognizable, because you've seen them, you've met them in the here and now. And it's like 3,000, 4,000, 6,000 years ago, and their names are Esai or whatever, but it's the same shit. It's It's always the same shit, different name, different location, but it's always the same shit because people don't change, and that's the key issue. People are very, very predictable because we have never changed. Yeah, yeah. Anything else, Mauritian?
Aside from that, not really much beyond the fact that listening to your talk on investment strategies that you gave to a previous question, I was going to sit through Benjamin Graham's Intelligent Investor, and now I'm not going to because you basically said, well, there's no sense in learning about value investing because we don't know what the picture's going to look like in well, 2-3 weeks.
Well, I mean, doing the Wikipedia stop and go and figuring out what value investing means, sure, go ahead. But in terms of like, I mean, it's good to know things, to know what value investing means. But the fact is, insofar as investing is concerned, we are in such a transition. This is epochal, okay? And the go-go markets of the past, they're gone forever. See, because I grew up in the doldrum markets, okay? When nobody paid attention to the Dow Jones, when there was no real bond market. When I grew up in that era in the 70s and the very early 80s. And, I know from my dad, who was a banker, about, the 70s and the 60s and how nothing was going on. Everything was just very, very boring. Yeah. And very boring, and there were no great fortunes to be made. Okay, this is a recent thing, and the fact of the matter is that after the crash of 1929, that started the Great Depression. Well, from 1929, it took until the 50s to recover to the previous level of markets, and from 1929 until 1979. Nothing much was going on in the financial markets. The markets were just incredibly boring. That's 50 years. If you tell me that because of this crash, nothing much is going to be going on in the stock market and the financial markets generally up until the year 2070, I would not be surprised. 2070, that's 50 years from now. I mean, we're all going to be dead, or some of you guys here listening to me will be very, very old men by the time the go-go era comes back. But see, I honestly doubt that we will see a go-go market like the one we just saw ever again, not in our lifetimes, So it's smart to start turning away from that kind of crapshoot casino economy mentality and start turning to something more worthwhile. The fact is also is that the hardships that this will bring, not just in terms of the death of people from coronavirus, but also from this crash of the economy, and how in the next few weeks we're going to start seeing people truly desperate. You all saw those lines of people in Pittsburgh, I think it was, that there was like a line of cars, hundreds and hundreds of cars waiting in line for a food bank, and we are 2 weeks into this shit, and there was this line. It was on TV. They had like drones filming it, right? And the line of cars went on and on and on and on. And they're all in line waiting to get food from a food bank. And they were like suburban cars, right? Yeah, the suffering is just getting started. And so when the suffering gets really, really bad, we're all going to know it. And when we eventually turn around the situation, people are going to say, I don't want to be playing casino. I want something steady, solid, dependable. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no. So anyway, sorry to go on the rant. By the way, how are you enjoying the webinar?
I thought it was really good. I'm glad you sent me the link.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, because Mauritian is a guest. He's a YouTuber. And yeah, I'm really glad that he can show up. So let me hang up on you, man. I'll catch you next time. And let me go for another question. Thanks for being here, by the way.
No problem. Thanks for.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off, Mauritian. I'm sorry about that. Let me see. Here was a question from Patrick. He said, will the pandemic result in a vast majority of positions working remotely that would not normally? Like I said, yes, like we talked about before. Oh, okay, here's a good one from Mattis. Mattis, how's it going? Let me unmute you here. And Mattis, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, you had a question. Why don't you hit us all with it?
Which one do you mean?
The
About the small businesses, yes?
Yeah.
When is it safe to start up small businesses? Because the big corporations that we have, they're gonna go tits up, don't they?
Yeah.
And then the communities that we have still needs goods and services. When is it safe to start up small grassroots businesses in this economy?
I don't
That
know.
really-
Yeah, I honest to God don't know. Okay. There could well be opportunities right now that I don't foresee. I mean, like just for the sake of argument, suppose you had like some small streaming service, and right now everybody's stuck at home watching TV, and so you could like advertise and get a lot of revenue that way. But that's just an example off the top of my head. But see, there are always opportunities. Okay, that's the
Mhm.
key. There are more opportunities when there's a great deal of social flux like we have now,
Mhm.
but you have to be clever to figure out what those opportunities are, okay? Because they're not obvious. They're obvious retrospectively, but not at the time, okay? It's sort of like, the winning lottery number. Yeah, after the fact, oh, those were the winning lottery numbers. But before, well, that's the trick, guessing them before it happens. I don't know what opportunities are at this time. I personally do not see any, and therefore I'm not making any move because that's my situation. But I recognize that people might not have the luxury of waiting around. They might need an income right quick. I
Mhm.
don't know honestly what would be the best move insofar as starting a small business. I mean, if I knew, I would say so. Fuck it, I'd do it myself. But I, honest to God, do not know. I don't know, but if you're paying attention and looking for opportunities, then you'll probably find some eventually. Because do keep in mind, at this time, I personally, I'm not looking for any opportunities. Full disclosure, because the last 2-3 weeks have been emotionally very draining for me because I'm stuck here in Amsterdam on the one hand.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I've concluded 2 very large business projects that wound up being very lucrative, and so I'm emotionally drained, and so I'm just basically just don't want to do anything. I'll tell you, my days are kind of when I wasn't worrying in the last week with lawyers and accountants and doing all kinds of like tidying up of these projects. I was just basically zonking out on YouTube videos because I'm emotionally a wreck. I'm not going to lie to you. Okay. I'm paying a
Mhm.
lot of attention to what's going on, but I personally am in no emotional position to be starting anything new. But my
Mhm.
point, but that's just me. Okay. If you are eager and to find a business opportunity, then just have to start looking around. It's as simple as that. Because there
Mhm.
are always opportunities, always. Okay. It's just finding them. That's the trick. Because once you find them and you start nailing, hammering that nail, then yeah. But you have to find it. Nobody can tell you. It's as simple as that.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But Matt, how have you been, by the way?
I'm good. Maybe a little bit coughing. I had a little fever. Maybe I got cold or something. I hope it's not corona, because if it is, then I'm in a real trouble, because I'm in the risk group. I have that sleep apnea.
Do you have the CPAP?
What?
The thing that you put at night to sleep with?
No, unfortunately, I don't have that. I am undiagnosed. Didn't
Okay.
make it to the doctor's office until that thing broke.
Yeah, because I have the same thing. I snore at night, and so like 4 years ago, I got it, and
Mm.
yeah, so I don't have any more sleep apnea, and I notice it. I before I was waking up groggy and not feeling very well, but now no problem at all because of it. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
have this problem that when I have sweet too much, then I
Mm.
might wake up while because I'm suffocating.
Yeah, yeah, I know the
That bad.
feeling. Yeah.
Oh
Well, so
my.
I hope you feel better, man. Take it easy, and I'll talk to you next
Yeah.
week, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I don't think that he has asked a question, but I'd love to talk to Mr. Blue Mr. Blue, are you there? Hello, Mr. Blue.
Hey, Coach, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. How's it going, my man?
You know, it's going. It's going. Things are getting better a little bit.
Yeah, tell me. Tell me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, everybody here in San Jose, California, Silicon Valley, we are all super locked down. The presence of police officers in my area has increased. There's still cars out there. The Costco's and the big grocery stores, they have certain times for, the older customers, and things seem to be a little bit more organized here. I mean, I think with all the tech companies, I mean, they were on the ball earlier, but things are starting to get, everybody's pretty sober out here, and we're like, we're ready to go. And I've taken a lot of your advice. I think, a while ago, I stocked up on a lot of water, canned foods. I mean, honestly, thank God when my first son was born, I bought a gun. People thought I was crazy. The only, but if shit hits the fan and there are riots, I mean, I'm 45 years old. I mean, how, in order for me to be responsible, I need to protect my family. I have friends that now I've been telling them so anyway, I don't want to be all, but it's good to have tools when things are not available. I just wish I would have gone to, I would have, gone to target practice and would have been a little bit more comfortable with things.
Well, see if you can go now. You'd probably be surprised. They're probably open.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it takes 5 minutes to check up on your area. Yeah. And by the way, to people who are thinking about buying a gun, and I think that now it might be too late, but check out anyway, just in case. And also, like at gun ranges, go to a gun range, because you'd be surprised. You can come across people. If you talk to the gun range owner and you make nice, he'll probably be able to point you in a direction of somebody who can sell you a properly licensed and registered weapon, and make it a private sale, and it would be perfectly legal. I'm not advocating anything illegal at all, okay? But what I am saying is that if there are sporting goods stores are not allowing sales, if you go to a gun range, the gun range owner or the people there working there, they might know people who are selling, and they can make a private sale. Because I understand that in a lot of places, sporting goods stores are not allowing gun sales anymore in the United States.
Yes, they cracked down quite a bit. Earlier, a couple of months ago, when we had the PG&E outages for a while, I talked to a couple of my doctor customers that go hunting, and they recommended getting some supplies and getting a different type of gun than what I have, and getting trained. But when I went to their ranges, there were these other schools that offer lessons, but it really wasn't in terms of getting proficient. It was more like tactical, and it would charge $100 an hour. And now, ex sheriffs and police officers that have retired and are offering this service. But yeah, anyway, so just overall, so I have a firearm, and you can never really use it for home defense, in my opinion, because I have two small kids, and by the time I wake up, and I used to get a lot of this criticism from some friends and family, and I've always told them that this would never be for home defense. I'd probably end up shooting myself before anything else. But it's when you go off the grid, when PG&E has this, and if everybody's off the grid for 3 days or longer, it's the people who are not rational, right? There's the things go on. That's when this this option comes in. So anybody out there that doesn't hasn't prepared, this might be something to think about.
Yeah, I'm extremely concerned about this situation, because my thinking is that this month is going to be ugly as sin, because the numbers are going to be increasing at such a rate that it's going to freak everybody out. At the beginning of this presentation, I showed you the coronavirus numbers for the United States. 1,300 people died yesterday, highest number ever so far. And as that number keeps on increasing, just because of a function of the size of the United States, because everybody's saying, oh, it'll flatten out, the curve will flatten out eventually. Yeah, eventually, but when is eventually? And the problem is that, sure, in Italy and Spain, it's starting to slow down, but it's still, they're still having substantial number of deaths every day. The rate of increase is sort of like flattening out, but the number of deaths